Oh,
Okay, now we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another installment of Academics Respond to Women Respond to the Men's Movement, a response to a series of feminist articles, essays published in 1992 that did not age well. And this week we have Vicki Noble's essay, A Helping Hand from the Guys, where I'm sure she is going to be really sensitive to men's issues and make a lot of requests that are very reasonable.
hey, I can hear you guys
All right, great. And now everybody can introduce themselves. We have Prince of Queens, we have Glebs, and we have Ashley. So you can like say hi.
now. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
All right, great. Check those boxes. And
And
then
by the
I'm just
by
going
the
to
way,
yes.
I just decided with last night that I needed to just go ahead and charge my ticket to the ICMI on a credit card because I will be able to pay it back. It never occurred to me to just use credit. I've never done that before in my
I know
life.
I gave you the idea and I'm
Yeah.
messaging you and I'm like, how have you not thought of this? This is really funny.
Well, you know what it was that
The
my
idea.
both my mother and father, my father being, like very, very cheap, and he grew up in the Depression and he was half Jewish. And my mother, I don't know, just not being very good at being very responsible or something. Uh, they both very much warned me against credit cards and were like, "Oh, it will ruin your life." Ever since I was little, and so it never really occurred to me to that it's like not actually that bad at all if you pay it back on time. Like you don't you aren't like I always thought it was going to be like you charge something on a credit card, you immediately are already going to have to pay 15% back, like even if it was you paid it back the next day or something. And I was like, oh, the PayPal credit system gives you a whole 6 months to pay your debt back before it starts charging interest. That's amazing. So
That does
I
sound really good. That seems like a long time. I always thought it
yeah,
was like monthly, and then they just add an amount usually
no,
based on whatever.
it's pretty sweet. Like I was all trying to borrow money from you, and you're like, I don't really know if you need to. And I'm like, wait, I don't. So, yeah, it's cool. I'm going to be at the ICMI. I have not bought myself a ticket, but like I can't. I'll figure that out.
Well, and for
Uh,
the tickets now, there's different options, so you can actually do like 1 or 2 days, I think, if you want it, if you're trying to like save on cost. But otherwise, I think that the price they have available now is probably similar to what I paid. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure if they did like discounts heading closer towards it. I don't know. It's all confusing, but
Brian said that Allison has some sort of system for layaway, probably.
The layaway system, from what I heard, the deadline for that passed like a few days ago, but she might be able to work something out for you if you talk to her.
Yeah, I just haven't heard back from her yet. But I like
Okay.
to think that people will kind of like want me there. So, but not holding my breath. Maybe I'm not that amazing, but I am sort of the most well-known gay actual MRA. So, um,
Yeah, I suppose especially by like self-identified standard because we have like there's like Peter Lloyd, which I'm
who's
pretty
he?
sure that's not just a rumor. I think he's actually I looked over his Twitter and I'm like I'm pretty sure. But he doesn't
Peter
like
Lord.
put it. He doesn't put it out there and front and center. It's just kind of like he's gay. You can just tell.
Let me check it out because oh, yeah, but I have more subs than him, but maybe he doesn't normally do that.
He doesn't really do YouTube, but if like his,
Okay.
but I think he's fairly well. He's always on like Australian news and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Well, yeah, okay. I didn't even know about him.
You
If
should
I
like.
remember
He's awesome. He
correctly,
has like the funniest little like sound bits of just like pissing off feminists on TV.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to take a look more into him. God, why did nobody tell me that he existed? I
I
feel
did. I've mentioned him on Gatriarchy.
okay.
It was a while
I, th-
ago.
I think he used to have in his Twitter bio, just incidentally, it's interesting bit of trivia. I think he used to have there that he was against third wave feminism. Like he used to be that sort, maybe, but it
Uh-huh.
no longer says that on his bio, which
Good.
is an encouraging sign.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes
Um,
by the suffragette.
I get it.
And then he
Uh,
wrote the books Stand By Your Manhood,
uh,
which I think I
sounds
should probably order that. I'm gonna, since I'm stopping in America, I'm gonna like have stuff sent to my parents' house so that I can pick up like books or whatever. I'm probably gonna order Pill Eater's book too because it actually looks really interesting.
huh.
His book on ludism, board games that get you high.
I was gonna send you actually, if you haven't seen it already, did you see his most recent glorious piece of music that he uploaded?
Actually, yeah. Well, wait, that wasn't. Was that when he actually did an upload, or was that when he just like tweeted? He tweeted one that I was like, "This is really cool."
It was on his YouTube channel. Like, it was kind of a humorous thing. I got the sense.
Let me
I don't know.
see. Because he hasn't. So it's not new on his YouTube channel. So I might have missed it.
Well, unless he's deleted it. Oh wait, yes, he's deleted it.
Probably because too many people saw it, so then it became popular, or something.
Like
Okay.
the ultimate hipster move if it's too popular.
All right. Well, so for today, this writer Vicki Noble, she's the one who does tarot readings. I'm just gonna double check this that she does like tarot readings. I'm pretty sure. So we could do our own tarot reading for the stream. Yeah, she's part of Mother Peace Tarot. Mother Peace Tarot.
Oh dear.
Okay. So I've spammed the link around, I have the book ready, and yeah, this will be the first time where I actually start reading a page of this within the first 10 minutes of the stream. So round of applause for that.
Wait, I got something to say. I'm just kidding.
This is what's called a
Yeah,
helping
I
hand
need
from.
to link this out. I'll have my mic off for a second, okay?
Yeah, and then I'll like retweet the tweet when it happens. We have a network. So she writes, men are gathering in the woods to do ritual, find themselves, bond with each other, and generally recreate themselves after the model set by women over the last 2 decades. This
What?
seems hopeful. I've been aware that men close to feminist women have felt a little lost and left out when we gather together in female-only space. At my speaking engagements, men, or sometimes women, ask me, what about men? What can we do? How can we be part of what women are expecting? Can men be close to the goddess? Some men have talked about a new model of masculinity that deliberately diverges from the patriarchal, mechanistic one in which they were raised. So, this is very, very classic, this book. They describe these sorts of rituals, right, that the men's rights movement, the early, like, mythopoetic movement did. And it's sort of descriptive, but I think she's describing it in this way as also like a jab, right? To be like it's stupid. These men just hanging out in the woods like larping as deer or whatever. I mean, like it is a little bit silly in its own right, but at the same time, this was kind of the only thing you had for men to try to find something that was like a men's group per se. But
But do they think this idea that the men stole it from women, like culturally appropriated to or something? That's kind of that's where she's going at right here, like that's
well,
Yeah,
the idea.
I'm sure that's part of it. And also, by the way, the goddess is the that is the thing that I've placed on our over our faces here. So the goddess is watching.
Yeah.
Dreamcast
Mind your
vagina.
manners.
The thing is, I actually really feel that it's hard to avoid becoming a total misogynist after reading all of this stuff. Like, you really, really, thank God for people like the Honey Badgers, Janice Fiamengo, Elizabeth Hobson, because these women, it's like, what redeeming qualities do they have aside from being good at being selfish? Like, because, that's necessary when we're Neanderthals. Women need to be selfish to survive and procreate. That they're really good at that.
Have you seen the makeup tutorials? Okay, so we don't
But
need
the
this.
but
We
the
don't need this kind of
but,
erasure up in here. All
but
right.
the but the best ones are done by, male to females.
But yeah. Oh, yeah, that's actually true. It is the yeah, yeah.
I love how, I was actually just thinking about this, in regards to like ContraPoints. The online feminist movement is now headed by a transgender. It's like, they're like, I think the reason that Anita failed was maybe because she was kind of dumb and not good at, successfully dealing with her critics and stuff. Maybe we should get a guy to do it, but have him like pretend to be a woman. Like, what if like going on hormones was part of the contract? Now, I'm being completely absurd. I don't think that that's actually what happened, but it does. It just, I can't help but sort of think about that.
You know what it was is they looked at the dream team, which is Anita Sarkeesian and Jonathan McIntosh, and then they were like, if only we could just combine them into the perfect advocate. And then ContraPoints is like, hey, what's up, guys?
And
Yeah.
doesn't ContraPoints have a doctorate, or at least he got part way through it, and he's one of those people who like to constantly signal about how intelligent they are because they've got doctorates.
He doesn't have
Yeah. Well, no,
doesn't
that
have a doctorate,
but they did go to graduate school in philosophy, and actually I can kind of relate to how they described some of that, how they like wanted to move up in academia and like play that whole game and do all that stuff, but then they just found that there was this major disconnect between the topic itself and just the overall structure of academia.
And yet, if you take the time to sit through one of her videos, you get the sensation of just more or less having just hacked your way through a fog bank with a battle axe. I mean, there's nothing. There's no there.
Don't misgender them. This person is not a
Oh,
she.
sure.
According to
Right.
me, they are somebody who is very, very confused, started cross dressing on YouTube and got a ton of attention and was like, oh my God,
Well, the thing
it's
is,
so much
until
easier to get an audience if I'm presenting as this way. Maybe I should just go on hormones.
I
Sorry.
think until the thing is, I'm glad you said that, because until Derek at some point said she, I believe, and now he's saying they, so I don't know. But until then, I always just instinctually said he. I used male pronouns because, like, when I look at him and when I listen, oh, for fuck's sake. See, like, my instinct says male still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I just say
Well,
they them because then I don't have to think about it. Because it's like you're in this catch-22, where if you say she her, then people will be like, "Oh, I can't believe that you're prostrating yourself to their pronouns and like subjecting yourself to that." But then if you say he him, it's like YouTube will ban me or something stupid
yeah.
for like
Well,
no
and
reason.
I don't believe in purposefully misgendering people who have actually like gone on hormones and
Yeah,
stuff.
I
I
don't
think that
either.
that's, but I do. I mean, I've said this so many times. It's like, there are people who have severe gender dysphoria. Somebody like Melissa Carley, who was actually in the Navy and was beginning to shave her legs and go and perform drag while she was stationed at a base because she needed to get that out of her system, and she was just like mentally a wreck and everything. And it went on for several years, and then when she was finally out of the Navy, she began transitioning. And then there's ContraPoints, who clearly didn't consider transitioning until after it was a college graduate school dropout that had nothing going for them, and then realized that they could make a new YouTube channel after their failed male YouTube channel and dress up like a woman and be like the, great white hope of intersectional feminism. And people were like, oh my God, you're so awesome. Should I call you she? And at first they were like, well, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'm non-misgenderable. And then enough people were like, but aren't you non-binary? Wait, but maybe you're a woman. Like they gaslit them, and the more they went with the woman thing, the more popular they got. And eventually they went on hormones after about 2 years of that. I do not think it is healthy to tell young people, especially in today's day and age, that that is how transitions work.
Yeah, it's definitely very atypical. It's its own weird kind of situation. But did they actually say that at one point that they're non-misgenderable?
Yep.
Okay, I feel like once that's your standard, like once that's what you've said, like now nobody can ever get in trouble for anything in terms of like the pronoun.
Well, theoretically, but
In
YouTube
theory,
obviously not on YouTube. They will take any
yeah.
chance they get. So that's why I think it's appropriate to say they, or just refer to them as contra or contrapoints, and never cater to pronouns.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well let's trudge on a little bit further into here. But then I started to get worried. What has emerged from the news media and the plethora of recent books written by Robert Bly, Sam Kean, and their younger proteges is a clearly stated anti-feminist backlash. I have hesitated to use a phrase like men's movement to describe the trek of a few very vocal and arrogant men. It's no surprise that the media has so quickly picked up on a movement of white men that affirms and reestablishes the traditional male dominant values of Western patriarchal culture. The women's movement has been active for 20 years, and Time, Newsweek, and NBC have yet to ask its leading theorists what they actually think. Yet the men's movement, an infant by comparison, has received full out coverage from all of these media vehicles, and even alternative ones like Yoga Journal. Some of it involves ridicule, of course, but more often the men are taken quite seriously. I guess I can't really speak to the quality of early like journalism covering the early men's movement. I'm gonna guess that virtually all of it was ridicule, if it's anything like what happens to the current men's movement. And actually, the current men's movement, the treatment is typically worse than ridicule, right? Typically, it's like they're slandered as hateful. And she does a little bit of that here, right? She doesn't want to call it a men's movement. She wants to call it an anti-feminist movement. And you have to remember that this is like the mythopoetic men's movement. This is very much like men just kind of doing their own thing. And it's not necessarily feminist, but I think many of these men would actually identify as feminist. But it's not like the explicit, post Paul Elam hardline anti-feminist like that we see today. So
I just think it's funny that a movement in favor of men is automatically deemed anti-feminist. What does it say about feminism then?
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, I mean, and like, how do you? There's really no way to square that, right? Unless you buy into this whole,
Patriarchy helps men too, man, baby.
yeah, and just their whole like kind of top down construction, right? Of like patriarchy hurts everyone, and like that's what we're fighting. And let's see, so yeah, we
And
have.
also,
Yeah, go ahead.
anytime someone makes this charge, because she said this white patriarchal domination and so on, when someone makes this charge that society or some element within society, obviously depending on the specifics of the individual case, but is based on male values or patriarchal values, I think in some cases maybe we should just be forceful enough to say, yeah, and maybe that's as it should be, or norms of communication and discourse, for instance, or something like that, or justice. Because I know people who complain about mansplaining all the time, and my woke take on mansplaining, I guess, which I've talked to Derek about before, I think, is basically it's something that men do not just to women, but also with other men as well, just as much. It sort of introduces this element of status competition into your interactions with people, or into conversation, which is just a natural part of how males communicate. And, if it makes you feel insecure, well, maybe you need to just, well, if you're actually doing a better job than the person who's mansplaining to you, just get on with it. Just don't be such a pussy.
Well,
And yeah.
sorry, the term mansplaining is just a gendered version of condescension, and condescension definitely has no gender. In fact, I would say that women, on average, because we live in uh, a veritable female supremacy at this point. After fourth wave feminism, third wave feminism was kind of like, give us all the rights that you possibly can, including some special rights, and they succeeded. Fourth wave feminism is like, okay, now that we have that, let's just completely take over society and make men lick our boots all the time. So they can't stop being condescending. And the word womansplain is way more accurate to a gendered behavior. If you look up the Urban Dictionary definition, it's basically telling a man how his mind works and what he's thinking, in spite of the fact that he obviously knows better than she does, usually with accusations of things like misogyny for typically irrational reasons. It's like that actually does happen all the time. But mansplain, it's just when a man explains himself literally ever. I mean, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be when a man is condescending to a woman, but that's just dumb. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what if she doesn't know what she's talking about, which very often happens. And so I think it's just a form of gender bigotry. And the fact that they will say, well, women can mansplain too, that just shows how stupid it is. It's like, okay, so when a woman is being condescending, it's mansplaining. When a man is being condescending, it's also mansplaining. Have you no self-awareness for the notion that you just hate men, which of course they don't?
Yeah,
Right,
and
but
it really
Self-awareness, they wouldn't be
unravels at the.
feminists.
Oh, sorry.
I think there is sort of just like a healthy competitive sort of one-upsmanship to the way men do sometimes communicate, like in specific kinds of environments, which women do also complain about, because it's a way of like showing what you have to offer in your intellectual toolkit, and you can kind of like sort people into a hierarchy in that way, or hierarchies of competence. And I think women don't like that, or certain women, the kinds of women who complain about it.
They're the
Because
kinds of women who don't know a bunch.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, well, and I think that part of it too is whenever you're looking at the ground level of what people are actually saying and really unpack it at a simple level, you see how it falls apart really easily. But then it's sort of it's like a Trojan horse use of abstractions. You jack things up one level of abstraction, and then that's where you kind of tuck away all of your assumptions. So with mansplaining, right? You take condescension and you're gonna abstract upon it one level and go up to this thing called mansplaining. And in that, what you're doing is you're secretly packing in the judgment that condescension is a gendered phenomenon, which is something that men perpetrate against women. But you don't want to just say that because it's ridiculous when you actually unpack it to the ground level. So you cheat that into your concept, your abstract concept of mansplain, and then you start to use that term as just this really just cheap and just like it's so just this absolute just bitch made way of just cheating in what you're trying to actually say. And I think it's to the point where the overwhelming majority of people who use this term, mansplain, they don't comprehend the fact that what they're really doing is cheating in this Trojan horse assumption that condescension is a male on female phenomenon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think also it's really important to point out that it has a very sinister underpinning. Like this comes from the postmodern neo-Marxist left. It's definitely that's where it evolved from, and their entire worldview is based around discrediting white men, especially. And so they don't like. Why do you think that they came after the guy who landed the probe on like the comet that was so far away, or Tim Cook so early. It's because they were trying to undermine and dismiss, like even vilify, the actual contemporary living geniuses who have been accomplishing a lot that are good things, that happen to be white men, and things like that. And then they're trying to create an openly hostile culture where men just step to the sides and live in the shadows, or worse, do all the women's work for them so the women can't take credit. Like, Google has become this weird female supremacist company, and it's very clear from how the executives and people like that speak. Like this Project Veritas leak just came out, which is a great bombshell. It could this will likely change everything. And they have this woman who's like this high ranking executive just acting like a complete moron. And then Ted Cruz has a Google representative come to the Senate floor, also a woman, acting like a complete moron, lying through her teeth. And it's like, okay, but Google was built by men, and these women are, they appointed these like completely underqualified morons to be in charge, and they are just messing everything up. And so, you know, like this idea of qualified men stepping to the side became so ingrained in so many people because they were shamed on so many levels, and they were terrified of being called out on social media and all sorts of things like that, that they just kind of rolled over and let it happen. Um, and that's a really, really dangerous thing, primarily for the people that it most affected, like the leftists. Like it made the leftists so incredibly weak on accident that they're just going to keep losing. And I don't really remember exactly why I started saying that, if unless, but I think I kind of concluded what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, that's one of the reasons why get woke, go broke is a thing, because well, those who are woke, they hire people not by their qualifications, but by using the ideology as the measurement stick. So of course, when unqualified people are in power, well, it always ends the same way.
Hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah, mansplaining was just one of the cultural linguistic introductions that sped up that process. Like imagine all of the extremely intelligent guys who work for Google, who work under these executives who are just, the stupidest feminists, and they just sit there not saying anything as these women make the dumbest decisions in the world because they are afraid of mansplaining to their boss.
And
It's so absurd.
unfortunately, I don't think Google will go broke as a result of its wokeness
Well,
because of
I'll
basically
go ahead.
the acquiescence of normies. Like most people just don't care enough.
I don't know. I
Well,
don't know if am I allowed?
Not in the short run. It'll catch up to him though.
Yeah, I think that this new Project Veritas leak is going to lead to a government investigation, and it's going to decide that Google has officially violated many things by just lying on the Senate floor and things like that. And they were given this, exempt status that they could just police their platform and everything in whatever way they wanted, but that was on the condition that they would do it as neutral and not do it with the publisher model. And they have repeatedly been caught violating that. And now we're getting hard evidence about them doing that. So I think there's going to be an investigation. There's going to have more stuff come out. And they're probably going to take away that exemption from them. And then they're probably going to be open to lawsuits from people who have been targeted for their political views. And, if there's like some big class action lawsuit and they can no longer manipulate their, you know, platforms, then they're really in big trouble. because then, the other platforms can get a leg up. Like
Yeah,
DuckDuckGo
in
totally,
theory.
yeah, in theory, but it could happen. I mean,
I saw someone with
people,
a DuckDuckGo T-shirt walking around in Hong Kong, and
that's,
I should have stopped them and became their friend, but I was too shy.
yeah, because what we always need to remember is that the titans of tech have fallen before, and they were every bit as much of monopolies then as Google is now. It's just that Google is a lot more huge. But back in the day, everybody always thought that American Online would be on top. Like it was unheard of to think that America Online wouldn't be basically the Google of its day, but it fell from its glory, and so uh, they're on much thinner ice than I think they realize, just because the people who should be realizing it are underqualified.
Yeah, we'll cross some fingers. We have some interesting happenings in the chat. Hello, Echoplex. I'm glad you stopped by. And we have our usual suspects, Bloody Bush Dimension. And Thuggy is usually in the Gatriarchy chat and sometimes here. I don't know if you're usually here, but I'm happy to have everyone here. Broken-Hearted Liberal says, Prince, don't underestimate the buckets of money Google is going to dump. So, I don't know. We'll see. So I do apologize. I'm looking at the stream right now, and like the quality of the pages that I took, these ones I guess did not turn out very well. But I'll read them nice and clearly. I'll be reading it nice and clearly. So let's go through this probably next page or so here. So Vicki Noble continues. I've been watching the thing grow into a kind of monster, wondering what could possibly be the correct response, since anything critical coming from feminist women is going to add fuel to the fire of the wild men. However, I am now very much reassured about the solution. It is men themselves, bright, clear-thinking, feminist-oriented, and morally outraged men, who are taking it upon themselves to correct the false media impression that there is anything new or revolutionary about the aggrandized men's movement. Self-aggrandized, sorry. Smart men have learned that they don't need to separate themselves from the feminine in order to be free, have begun to respond to the misogyny in Bly's and Keene's analyses. Men who care about women don't want to be associated with backlash. They've been working too hard in their own lives, redressing the battle of the sexes. Outraged at the infantile remarks of their brothers, they are raising critical voices against their own kind. Peter Murphy, for example, in reviewing Bly's Iron John for the popular men's magazine Changing Men, provokes and challenges men by calling Bly's vision too easy, too mystical, too fundamentally reactionary to bring us anywhere but backwards to an image of masculinity which is not only old, but worn out.
Uh-oh, he's reactionary. And I learned because of Echoplex that anybody that is reactionary in any way is like, they lose. So, thanks for that. That was really helpful when you said that before.
Well, wait a minute. I thought that feminists were reacting to the patriarchy.
No, 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 no. But
reactionary.
But they're good reactionaries because they're reacting to the things that are the bad thing.
Right. So, but I can't argue that, well, if I argue like feminism is a bad thing, then I would be not reactionary by definition.
No, 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 no. You're the reactionary because you no.
Yeah, because no.
I think the way these people use it is something approximating anti-modern, basically.
Well, reactionary used to mean, someone. If someone is reactionary, means that this person wants to restore how things were before changes were implemented. So
before the Enlightenment, I've heard a lot of people say. So yeah, that would have no relevance to this.
Yeah, the problem is that the word reactionary has this negative connotation, and it shouldn't have, because if you take the meaning that someone who wants to restore how things were before changes were implemented, well, if the changes were shit, maybe in this case being reactionary is a good thing. For example, if a democratic country had a coup and there's a dictatorship, then being reactionary is being you want to restore democracy and kick the dictators out. That would be technically reactionary, but it's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah,
to be, right?
I've just always thought it was a stupid term. But
I
I wanted to point out here. So So this man who is one of the good feminists, right? So she describes the good men as men who are feminist oriented and they're rightfully outraged and they're bright and clear thinking, right? So this is her model for what a man should
Oh
be,
yeah,
right?
who writes for the popular men's magazine that no one's ever heard of?
Called Changing Men, right? And it's so funny. You can't find anything that these women will endorse that's positive towards men. It's always about deconstructing masculinity, changing men. You know, it's always about it's never it's never a celebration of things that are good. It's always about it's always very negative and very critical.
It's
So
almost as if they hate men or something,
it's
right?
all. I mean, dare we suggest? Dare we suggest such a thing? But you know what? This woman, remember, she is a tarot reader. She does tarot reading for Mother Peace Tarot. She's all about love and peace. And as we all know, when a white woman is all about love and peace, we know that that's what she's actually about, and that it's not definitely not that.
Yeah.
The calm, clear voice of Steve Greaves responding to a yoga journal feature spread on the men's movement was also refreshing, and I found myself beginning to relax. Greaves takes responsibility as a man, discussing the use of the phrase male bashing as a self justifying, reactive, male sexist term similar to white racists' favorite legalism, reverse discrimination. Rape, pornography, femicide, and other hate crimes against women have been increasing since 1980. Women are more in danger from men they know than our soldiers are from enemies on the battlefield.
Oh my god.
I can't believe they wrote
Oh
that.
my
I
god.
know, isn't it? Like, it's so
I just
ridiculous.
want to know, I have a feeling that Echoplex isn't here anymore, but I really want to know what he would say about
No,
that.
he just came here to shit on our audio, and I wonder if he kicked me out of the Discord. I came in peace. I was one of the very nice ones who showed up after the Honey Badger radio thing.
I annihilated him on Twitter so easily. He looked like such an idiot. Like
Well,
there was
now
no
he's not gonna come on to Gaytriarchy. That could have been fun.
I don't think I want him to because he was so absurd on Twitter. Like I can find you the interaction and tag you. Like there, he proved. Well, I think he's afraid of me mainly. Like he just was like, "Nah, but but you suck, and I'm gonna fuck you if I want." And like it was he had no leg to stand on with anything. I was able to just completely debunk all his points in tweets, which I don't like limiting myself in such a way. But he was basically just like, no, I'm gonna give you the treatment I gave to Brian and Allison, and I'm gonna do it 10 times as bad to make it seem like I'm winning, and then ignore you. Like, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you probably don't really have a whole lot to say, and you're probably not going to be, if we ever do have a discussion, it's probably just going to be the same thing where you're interrupting constantly, being completely rude, and then somehow trying to contort that into some sort of win. And I don't think I want that.
No, yeah, and it's I guess the Honey Badger fireside kind of speaks for itself, I think. But I just want to. So then she used this term femicide, and John the Other and Diana Davison actually they did a very funny video together where they're like reading through the thing and they're like, wait, did they just say femicide? And they kind of look at each other and they're like looking it up like, what is this? And then, and then it's just another one of these super funny. It's a Trojan horse claim, right? They're cheating in the assumption that homicide is a gendered issue that disproportionately affects women, which is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous, and that's why they have to use a term like femicide to cheat in this bullshit assumption so people who aren't thinking go, oh my god, violence against women, that's awful.
Yeah, well, what I don't remember who was saying this, but it was a female MRA. It might have been Elizabeth Hobson or somebody like that, but she was saying that femicide started out and it had a sort of specific definition, but as it evolved, it just turned into like anytime a woman is killed ever.
I mean, it's the fact that they use it, it means that they think that female lives are more intrinsically valuable than men's lives, so that's why there's a special term for that.
Oh, you think?
I mean, there are special terms for all sorts. Like, for example, patricide, matricide, like killing of mother and father, and
Regicide?
infanticide, regicide, killing of someone of royal lineage. There are terms for all sorts of murders,
Well,
but still, the fact that they say that femicide is on the rise. First of all, the fact that there are no citations at all in this, just all saying, like every single woman is raped 8 million times per second in the world. You can make bullshit claims like that, and usually when you look up those stats, they either come from feminist literature where there's like Olympic levels of mental gymnastics to support this, or it's a really misunderstood or misinterpreted statistic from there are crimes against females specifically, but they're as prevalent only in like a third world and during civil war or civil unrest. So, and they apply this to first world countries in peacetime. So yeah.
I do want to note there are 7 citations at the end of this. So this one has a little 2 at the end. It's hard to see on the screen, but this one does cite the Yoga Journal article. So that is a citation. They have Yoga Journal. Earlier she cited Changing Men. She'll cite Yoga Journal again later on herself. She's citing her own letter to the editor in Yoga Journal. And then the 4th one is from an unpublished manuscript by David Elkins called Stopping the Violence Against Women, One Agenda Item for the Men's Movement. But this is an unpublished manuscript that she's citing.
So there is no way for us to check.
I don't believe so. Yeah, and then number 5 is from a journal called Magical Blend. Number 6 is from Insight, or it's called Insight from Elle magazine.
Well,
and then the final one is Ms. Magazine.
Oh, maybe maybe there's a typo. It's actually Magical Bellend. It's a men's magazine after all.
I just want nobody to ever judge me for linking them to a YouTube video when this bitch gets published with this article and her citations are literally a yoga journal, Elle magazine, Ms. magazine, and a fucking unpublished manuscript. Like, this is ridiculous. That's why I hate academia. There's all this like pretension over like, oh, we do all this. But it's like you can have a study that checks all its boxes and uses all its variables and has the whole structure of everything, but like they can cheat so much garbage into it by doing that structure. So I kind of think we need to just radically rethink that. And like we need to accept the fact that real wisdom might come in the form of a janky little live stream with 7 viewers on a channel with less than 400 subscribers. And this could be the apex of the new speaking of humanity. And then you'd be the first to see it because you were open-minded and you didn't need all of the pomp and circumstance to tell you that things were valuable.
Yeah, and I think as far as just on the phrase changing men, I wonder if maybe where some of this comes from is these people tend not to believe in innate natures. As far as the term innate itself, what that actually means is a whole other kind of philosophical, biological can of worms. But let's just say genetic attributions about traits or behaviors. These people don't really like that very much. And there is some data, limited. I've seen one study, for instance, showing that genetic attribution as a cause of traits in human beings is inversely correlated with prejudicial attitudes towards people who have particular behaviors or whatever. Some parts of it looked a bit sketchy. Some of the results weren't significant, so take that as you will, but it just makes you wonder if maybe if people acknowledged that there was such a thing as an innate male nature and innate female nature, then we could talk about the aspects of male nature that can manifest in pathological ways, and we could talk about the aspects of female nature that sometimes manifest in pathological ways, and there wouldn't be the need for it to be divisive or to treat it like a war in this way, and there would maybe be more just acceptance, stoicism. That's not to say that we shouldn't try to change people through real methods, maybe methods that actually have a relationship to reality, but I think what these people are doing is only going to do nothing at best, if not hurt people.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me how much of academia just seems to have an agenda, and that very little of it seems to have any connection to the actual ground. Like, I really think the ivory tower, it got so tall because, like, it's a bunch of nerds running away from things that are actually happening in reality. And then basically just bullying people with like these labyrinths of things that most people just can't really follow. It's not a lot of people can like look through a study and just kind of read it and be like, oh, this is what they're saying. They'll just kind of get dazzled by all of the technicalities in it, and then assume, well, they must be saying something that's very very true because it's so professional.
Yeah, also another. By the way, this is why the dangers of postmodernism are so high, because if you don't know anything about academia, you read a real scientific paper and you read something produced by postmodernists. If you don't know the terms, both seem kind of similar. But if you translate a normal scientific paper in normal human speak, substitute every unknown term with their definition. Normal paper, it makes sense, but in postmodernist, if you translate postmodernist speak into normal human speak, it's just gibberish. Well, by the way, I
Well,
already
the immediate difference that pops out at you comparing a scientific paper with a postmodern paper is that postmodern academics will they'll try to prove things with words, basically, whereas scientists tend not to do that. You're expecting to, a lot of times, if you're reading a scientific article, you'll just skip straight to the table. You're expecting to see a data table somewhere.
oh yeah,
With
that too.
postmodernism, it's just
The table
gibberish,
is the comments section of of the scientific journal.
Also, by the way, I've probably already recommended this book here on the stream, so in the past. But this is a book called "Fashionable Nonsense" by Sokal. He managed to prank one of the postmodernist peer-reviewed journals by publishing a paper that was like bullshit upon bullshit upon bullshit, and it was a big scandal at the time. It was great, and in this book he goes over several famous postmodernist quote unquote academics who and just takes their thesis and just explains what they mean, and turns out that just meaningless drivel, and how they like to spice up their bullshit by borrowing terms from real sciences, and how they generally there's nothing wrong with using a term from other areas and just repurposing for your purposes. Like
I love
if
the
you look
fact
in,
that they published it in French first.
well, I think it's because it's his native language is French. So
Oh, I wanted to think that they did that like deliberately, like just like make it seem like okay, we'll put the English version out later. You for you plebs, just so that the original would be like in French. You're like, oh wow.
They should have written it. They should have written it in Latin instead, or maybe Hellenic Greek.
Yeah, right.
yeah. Oh
But yeah, so that's written by that's Alan Sokal, like the Sokal affair, Sokal. That's
yeah,
I didn't
that's the
realize he
one.
also had a book. I knew about the Sokal affair. I didn't realize there was like this separate book.
Yeah, and also in this book, he actually goes over the paper that was published, this Sokol affair, and explains how he wrote this and what it meant, and usually he even says where he drew his inspiration from, and explains that for example, like this part, I tried to make it mean as little as possible, just make it as nonsensical as he could. And sometimes he shows his inspiration and he comments like, "I wish I could write something as stupid as this original from a real postmodernist. I tried my best, but my parody is not as stupid as the original. It's great. Just go through it. It's amazing, and also really revealing. Shows how how little scientific and how little scientific there is in postmodernism. Is just like obscurantism, modern day mysticism, where it's like if you make it seem very deep and profound, but in reality it's just nobody knows what it means, because even the people who wrote it don't know what it means, because it doesn't mean anything. It's just like they're jumping around the campfire and chanting some mantras. Shamans do it, but at least shamans have fun because they're on drugs all the time.
Well, I
Maybe.
wouldn't say that postmodern philosophy has no meaning. I would say that there is actual apt times to think about its validity. Like postmodernism could be, like if used properly and properly, if somebody properly understood society, postmodernism could be used to dismantle feminism, um, because it is all about, women do have more power in our society at this point, and they do live in an alternate reality where their realities are prioritized by the establishment and taught in schools. And so the idea of dismantling the dominant narrative and thinking of the people who are disenfranchised by this narrative, which would be all men, that could be a postmodernist trajectory. Like that could be done trajectorially by
That's true.
postmodernism. So, but at the same time, most of the people who are postmodern, like who act like postmodernists, don't self-identify as being postmodernists. They don't even know why they are the way that they are, because it's just a pervasive philosophy that's become a part of people's lives increasingly ever since the 1970s. And they don't understand that, and they also don't actually understand how society works. They are dumb enough to believe that men have more power because of the top 1% of men. So it's really just a kind of a paradoxical situation of stupidity based around it. So
Well, yes, makes sense.
Echoplex
I'm
just
not
called us a bunch of incels. That's very rude, sir. That's very rude.
who did?
Echoplex. I'm talking to him in
Well,
his Discord chat. He's like, your
Oh,
audio is so atrocious and blah, blah, blah.
someone
tell
who uses, like, unironically uses incel as a.
I know. I shouldn't have mentioned it. I shouldn't have mentioned it.
It's the most PC thing to do.
I have a good meme that you should go share. Hold on, let me dig it up, Kim.
All right, I'm gonna let's get a little further into this one, right? Because Thuggy asked us, so what does yoga have to do with feminism? I'm not sure. I do know a lot of the writers of these essays are unironically witches, and maybe they can help us square this circle because they're all about healing. That's a theme. Also, hello to Botanicus Green and to Alejandro. Nice to see you guys here. So she continues. After my letter appeared suggesting that men might help women in our effort to survive the violence against us, I received a call from a professor working on an article about violence against women to be published in the Journal for Humanistic Psychology. Dr. David Elkins wanted to quote from my letter and send me a draft of his essay. Again, I felt very hopeful. Although Elkins is supportive of the men's movement, he challenges men to confront their own personal shadow in regard to violence, using some of their newfound fierceness in the service of protecting women from men's violence. Elkins says that men would see the men's movement as an opportunity to oppose women who are simply practicing revenge against women based on the false assumption that men and women are equally matched in power. So that's the portion of it that comes from this unpublished manuscript. Maybe it was since published. I don't really know.
Well, they didn't mention the name of this manuscript, or at least the working title. Because, well, if they did, you can look it up.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
just the name of the journal and the name of it's the name of the author, which would be Dr. David Elkins. Which, like, it seems like there's like a tiny little incestuous cabal of male feminists that all of these women endorse. Because I feel like David Elkins' name has come up before. The other one too is what's his name? On refusing to be John Stoltenberg. John Stoltenberg, I totally forgot about this, and I haven't mentioned it on the stream. He gets cited all the time in these essays. He was married to Andrea Dworkin. he was Andrea Dworkin's like gay husband. So he's like so gay that he goes to get a beard, and his beard is Andrea Dworkin. Like that's how much of a failure this man is. So after this book is finished, I am definitely definitely gonna do streams where we read through On Refusing to Be a Man. And the nice thing about that is like you can just find the PDF online, so we won't have to resort to like my shitty little screenshots of pieces of paper here.
Hey, Spaceman, check
Yes.
your Twitter DMs.
Okay. I sent the link to Chadwick Moore just in case he wanted to hop on because I feel like he'd
Oh,
have
okay.
fun on a stream like this, but he might be busy. Oh yeah, these ones. Everyone I don't like it. Let me see. I can do a quick. I can do a quick little display capture.
Because it's so good. It's just so good.
Actually, I should probably do a window capture. Now the window captures work for no reason. I was really happy about this.
God, you know, it's so embarrassing that Echoplex is calling us incels. Like, I don't know. Have you looked in the mirror? Like my problem
Stop.
at no. No, this is a time where
No,
this is
this is the
completely
time.
appropriate. This is a time where I get to say things like that. It's like, first of all, I can show you a picture of myself at around, uh, 17, and I can also show you a picture of myself in my late 20s that will prove, that there's basically no way that I'm not lying when I say, actually, my problem grew to be that I actually had too much sex, and then I scaled it back because I had that opportunity.
That's a funny way to describe yourself. Like, no. I look like I had too much sex.
Well, no, it's not exactly. I don't exactly anymore because I stopped caring after I realized, like, wait, this is not good for me. Like I had in when I was in San Francisco during 2014, there was a month when I had like three different foursomes, and it was like, this is like, and oh, and I was high on MDMA every time. I'm like, this is how guys totally get HIV and stuff. Like, I need to stop.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds like it's kind of doing not just double but like quadruple time. Like
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, for a guy like Echoplex to be like incel, it's like, oh, you tired little man. I don't know if that's the right word for him, but um, more just like, oh, you non self aware, uh, bitter queen, because
well,
that's really.
and that's why I just think we don't have to dig the dagger in because you know.
Hey, he likes the dagger clearly.
So this meme, I do like these Rainbow Bright thing. I think that's Rainbow Bright, right? Everyone I don't like is. See, I can't read it from the current screen I'm on. Is not
Hitler,
Hitler,
Putin,
Putin,
Russian hacker.
Julian Assange, white nationalist, a bot, incel. The emotional child's guide to political discussion. It's
Did
so
you share it?
true.
Did you share it with him?
Yeah, it's on the screen right now. Oh, I'll share it with him.
Yeah. You don't have to say the thing about me.
Well, I mean, he could be listening still. We don't know. I don't know if he's left or not. I feel like he would say something in the chat if he was, but maybe now he's scared.
I think he is
I think
because
we should treat him like a little deer. We don't want to scare him away. If he wants to talk and say insane things, then that's like really entertaining, and I'd be all for that.
I don't know. I'm kind of.
I feel like I weirdly have the patience for it, which like is like
Well, I don't.
uncharacteristic of me. Like normally I'm not very, um, normally I'm not very like what's the word? I forgot what the
I
word
don't have the
is.
patience for it. I kind of have an urge to put him in his place a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to white knight for the honey badgers.
All right, I'm gonna close out this page. So it's now we're on to Magical Blend. Similarly, in Magical Blend, Will Roscoe, author of The Zuni Man Woman, calls the masculinity that the men's movement is trying to redeem simply the idealized masculinity of patriarchy, and says a lot of the men's movement focuses on the longing for a male authority in our lives to overcome being enveloped and smothered by the mother. That's a paranoid fantasy. Women don't have the power in this culture to do that to men. He suggests that instead of men going out on a hero's journey of some kind, getting away from women, they need instead to embrace the woman inside of us. Roscoe doesn't think it's the father who can teach that. The men's movement has tended to focus on the lost father, but strong women who can point that way. Strong who can point the way. He suggests instead that it is not the personal father who influences men today, but the male peer group, the old boy network, a guy he hangs out with. Men need to be weaned from other men, which is why the whole thrust of the Bly Keene men's movement to go off somewhere with other men to learn how to be men is scary to me.
Okay, this woman is a crazy lady.
That did
Like,
not age well, right? That did not age well. We don't need
she's
fathers. Forget lost fathers. We need just strong women. Just keep empowering
and,
women. That's the
and men,
solution.
and men shouldn't be hanging out with each other. That's bad. Like who are you? Somebody's like psycho abusive girlfriend?
Yeah, kind of sounds like it. First of all, who is she to tell others what to do and how to live their lives? Also, apparently she heavily implies that this is the most beneficial way. But where did she get this idea? Just because she feels it? Well, I mean, feminists always refer to their fifis as reliable source of data, but that's not how the world works. Just because you feel something, well, I feel that the world would be much better we had a final solution to the feminist problem. And unlike their ideas, my fifi is actually, even though I don't have any empirical evidence for that, but we all know that it's closer to the truth than whatever this crazy witch or bitch, whatever she is spewing. But again, the problem is that when you go with the fifis, you get nowhere.
It's also kind of
So I'm kind
funny
of
that
rambling.
they're like, "Oh, women don't have the power to do this overarching thing. We don't have the power." It's like, well, I don't know. Like, think about like a person's lifetime. Like, you start out as like a fetus, where you're literally enveloped by a woman, and then you're a baby, and you spend most of your time with your mom, and then you're a child, and you spend most of your time with your mom. Or they outsource it to school and daycare, where the majority of the people working in positions of authority there are going to be all women. You know, like really for, so if you are in a situation where you don't even have like a father present, even if the father is present, it's still kind of a minority of influence that males would have, even under so-called patriarchy. And then you make it a single mother situation, and it's like this is near 100% exclusively female influence. So it's kind of crazy to me that's just completely lost on them. I mean, I'm not surprised, but
Yeah, another thing that I'm actually going to make a video about is that um high schools are socially, like, even for the kids, matriarchal environments. The women rule the school, and there's reasons for that. I actually kind of like, I think I diagrammed the 7 reasons and how they operate. Like, this one builds on this one, and this one builds on this one. And the popular girls are in charge of the school socially. Like, they sort of make the rules for etiquette for how students are allowed to treat each other, and they're able to enforce that and get their way. And it's been like that, since probably the 70s or 80s. Like, whenever women started doing better in school, in particular, and now it's just absurd. Like, that movie Election came out, I believe, in the late 90s, and it's only gotten worse from there in terms of the way that females are um, always the winners of the student body president type thing. And it I don't know. I don't remember all of the roles. I don't want to get into it, but it's like, by the time you get to college, if women don't totally control college, which they probably do, um, you've been so whipped by this system of female dominance.
it's like a reoccurring theme where we talk about like high school movies.
Everything in the world I can relate to a high school
We
movie.
should have, we should have like a high school movies stream.
I am a gay. I am a gay playwright.
I'm not sure I've seen Election. I don't think I've seen that one. I might have
Oh, it's
to.
great. It's wonderful. You'll love it. With what's her name? Reese Witherspoon, and the guy who Matthew Broderick, I think is the name. He was in like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a few other actors that you would maybe.
Wow, that is bad.
But those are the main ones. It's so funny. Reese Witherspoon is like the teacher's pet good girl that's obsessed with winning everything, and oh god, it's so good. You need to see it.
There is an Election on Netflix, but it's a Hong Kong thriller. It's like an Asian horror movie. So I think that's not the same movie. But anyway.
Oh, I left a link in the chat. Just seemed relevant.
Let me see. I don't see the link.
Oh well,
Did
it was in
you
the
send,
Google.
did you send it to me on Discord or?
Well, I see the link in the in the Hangouts.
The
chat.
Hangouts,
Not-
yeah.
Oh, in the
Not on the-
Hangouts chat. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Let me grab it. Where is the chat? Okay, here. No, that's for sending messages. I just want to see the chat. I don't know why it won't let me. Why do I have the hardest life?
Yeah, just click the show messages button and it'll show it.
Chat. Oh, I have to click that. That's so convoluted. Okay.
Well, it's made by Google. What do you expect?
I know. It's like, why do they do
Nothing
such
makes
a
sense.
bad job? Okay.
Because Google hires by not based on talent or qualification, but based on demographics.
Are you suggesting that affirmative action doesn't work?
Well, it's so bad that they call their own developers trained monkeys. If you go to YouTube and there is like a 503 server error, it says that a team of trained monkeys has been dispatched. It actually says that. I'm not making this up.
Oh yeah, but that's just a cute joke.
Now, like,
Right,
they're
right.
They're not wrong. I mean, of course, YouTube is runs as well as something run by trained monkeys would run. So they are correct there. By the way, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's like a thunderstorm outside right now.
I messed up the thing here. Also, now that the Hangouts link has been exposed. So now brace yourself. Anybody can invade. Okay, I set this here, and I gotta put my goddess back on top of here. Gotta have your goddess. Gotta have your goddess. We'll put her over down here. Oh no, I've put this below my pictures. Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting myself reoriented here. You usually this is bleh. I feel like technologically these streams have gradually improved a little bit each time. Okay. So where did I have 104 on here? Yeah, I do. So now she continues. Stephen O'Shea writes, some time ago, after reading Robert Bly's best-selling Iron John, a book about men, or maybe it was Sam Keen's best-selling Fire in the Belly on being a man, I realized that I was being cruelly oppressed. Industrial civilization, the rat race, misogyny, racism, cable TV. Sure, I created them, but now they're cramping my style. So he goes on to France, where he tells us the 1992 Men's Movement Convention will be held to penetrate into the central chamber of the Paleolithic cavern there, where there are paintings of my prey, mammoths, horses, bison, reindeer. Arg, arg, me want kill, me want eat, me want... A guide taps me on the shoulder. Have you noticed, monsieur, that the animals represented are female, and most of them are pregnant? She asks, and the rest of the tale unfolds from this paradoxical twist. So
What's paradoxical about it?
I don't know why that's a paradoxical twist. Because he's going there ironically, right? He's going there ironically to make fun of it. And then the guide mentions, oh, these animals in this display they have at this men's movement convention are all female. But it's like he wasn't there in good faith. So I don't get it. But anyway, this is a prototype of man boobs. This is David Futrell 1.0. This is an ancestor of David Futrell, aka We Hunted the Mammoth, and it's the same joke too. But you'll notice, his whole thing is like he lists some of the men's issues that were brought up at the time, which was industrial civilization, the rat race, misogyny, racism, cable TV. I don't know, like I feel like these are kind of like Meninist tier men's issues. But anyway, he mentioned them and says and dismisses it. Says I created them, right? So he identifies with like the whole group of all of men, which is basically what women do, right? When it comes to feminism, is they see women as this monolith. Anything that hurts one woman hurts all women, and they kind of see themselves in this classist way, and then they project that onto men when in reality men don't really think that way. And I think that probably, hopefully a majority of people who are either watching this or even in the stream, Allison did some videos on the apexual male, and I think that I'm not sure if it was officially part of like the series of videos she did on threat narratives. I think it was separate, but she has some like older videos on her YouTube channel that are just like these awesome gems. And I think at least like every couple of years I go back and I watch some of those because I always get something new from them each time. But the way she describes masculinity as apexual makes so much more sense than this whole feminized way of like men taking credit for all things men do and men having responsibility for all things men do. It's very, very much not the way that men are. Also, Alejandro asked me what this logo is. This logo is the goddess logo. How dare you, sir? How dare you be so disrespectful? And I'm going to elevate her because I don't like how this is balanced. I should just make it bigger. Psh. It's like just the Dreamcast vagina and the little eye boobs. It's perfect. If God is real, this is definitely what it looks like. How could it not? How could it not? We'll put her up here.
And also, as I said, it looks like scissors.
It does look like scissors, and if you turn it upside down, it looks like a dildo. Or like a butt plug.
Well, I mean, it's appropriate given that feminists can show their bullshit, where. So, yeah.
Yeah, I should create these and sell them as butt plugs because it would make so much money. It'd be very strong and empowering. But they'd be literally shoving their goddess up their ass.
By the way, speaking of, there was like a picture of one of those Risa stars, some probably a feminist, very body positive, selling her homemade dildos in the shape of Trump. Like, I'm getting mixed messages. She obviously doesn't like Trump, but she wants him inside of her.
Yeah, that's kind of a swing and a miss. That's a swing and a miss.
I mean, maybe the idea is like, you saw it, you grabbed pussy. Well, now pussy grabs you in Soviet Russia.
Uh-huh. Well, maybe the way she sees it is that she's enveloping it, and that's taking, that's it's a form of female power, right? To forcibly envelop things. Are they would they be acknowledging then that women can rape men by forcing themselves onto men? I've actually brought that up, right? That and I've had like a feminist woman I was arguing with on Facebook. This was years ago. She's like, "Oh, I'm a rape victim, and how dare you, sir, say this is not gendered or blah blah blah." And I mentioned, male victims of female perpetrated rape, and she's like, "That's not physiologically possible." Like that classic argument, which is so stupid and so easily debunked. But like, yeah, she just laughed at that. She thought it was like funny, and I'm just like, they're just like, oh, so this is clearly a person who like wasn't really raped, and you're lying about it. Like, I'm not afraid to pull that trigger if I'm like pretty sure on it and call them a liar about that.
By the way, I posted a link to a picture. Not sure if that's the same bitch, but by the way, yeah, it's from Daily Stormer of all places.
I'll have to open it later because last time I clicked the link, it like messed with the thing and I had to reopen the window.
Oh,
But I'll take a look at it after we get through the pages here. Especially because we can do our own tarot readings afterwards. So to celebrate Mother Peace Tarot, I found you can actually have a deck of tarot cards online, and you choose your cards, and then it gives you a tarot reading. So we can, I don't know, with the chat maybe we can collectively choose one to have a collective fortune, if we feel like it by the end of this. We're about at the halfway point, so I'll try to be a little sprightlier. So she says, I am grateful when men... Oh, sorry, what?
Oh, just... It's completely unrelated to anything, but I found an article that says this Tumblr is... let me read this. This Tumblr is using dildos to protest against U.S. gun laws.
Maybe we should have like a dildo culture stream. It seems like dildos have become a bit of a magnet for all kinds of activism.
Well, it reminds me of like they'll do something that they think is quote unquote shocking, except it's not really shocking to anybody except in some bizarre alternate dimension. Like, do you remember when that model or whoever, like Emily Ratajkowski, I think her name is, like she decided to pose nude or something to protest some U.S. states' abortion laws? And I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind that was exactly. Like, oh yeah, that'll show them. It's like, I guess maybe, this isn't the 80s anymore when Madonna could shock. Like, we're well fucking past that. So, like,
or it's like this scientist did she did this nude thing where she was like swimming with like a dolphin naked or swimming with like a polar bear naked, and it's just like.
The reason they do it is because they're attention whores, and they will use any opportunity to show off their
No, yeah, it's definitely like an exhibitionist kind of a fetish that they're just finding an outlet for, just like the femin girls,
Yeah. They should rename and replace the first letter with an S.
Ha.
Yeah, I'm very mature and well-adjusted.
Stop. I am grateful when men step in and do the right thing. I have been putting out this challenge, or plea, to the men I know for some time now. I first tried it out on my husband when I was still living with him.
Well, I wanted to say something about divorce, but she beat me to it.
These two sentences are just like the most quintessentially feminist sentences. We need to break this down, actually. There's a lot here. I am grateful when men step in and do the right thing. I have been putting out this challenge, or plea, to the men I know for some time now. I first tried it out on my husband when I was still living with him. He came home one night and found me reading the issue of the new Ms. magazine that focused on violence against women. I was in a state of upset, and I began to pour this out. He reacted immediately, asking me why I was attacking him, when he had been working hard all day and didn't have anything to do with the rape and murder of women. Help, I repeated with tears streaming down my face, really getting into the feeling of it. We need help. Women have been working on this problem for 20 years. We have taken karate classes, started rape crisis centers, and domestic shelters for abused women and children. We have worked with the cops, the lawyers, the courts. We have done all kinds of work to empower ourselves and our children. And the only visible response during that time is that the violence against women has increased to proportions that can only be seen as a Holocaust.
Derek, did you add in the phrase really getting into the feeling of it, or is that in the text?
No, that's in there. That's in the text.
So in other words, she was essentially putting on a performance. I mean, she essentially admits it. Oh, by the way, the reason that women do that is because men don't respond to that. Men don't care at all about women's feelings.
Oh my god, can you? I'm just like
I was being
the poor. I know, right? But like the poor husband just like comes home from work and like his wife is sitting like, I was just reading in this magazine and women are still raped despite us working on 20 years for this. We're not in a utopia yet and you need to help me. Help! And it's just like, Jesus Christ. Like, could you just imagine like trying to come home from that? And of course, it's like, of course he wants to go to the bar and have some beers instead of dealing with that. And then of course, oh, I had to leave him because he was an alcoholic. I just feel like that's like the classic setup. That's the classic scenario. Like,
also, did she actually compare this to Holocaust?
yes, she literally says this is increased in proportions that can only be seen as a Holocaust.
It's another Showa.
Well, because this was published in 1992, right? So this is before, this was I think right before everyone was expecting like the trajectory for crime to get worse and worse and worse, and then like the reverse happened, right? So you can imagine with all the feminist hysterical rhetoric, like that's what they were selling people, and like maybe this woman is dumb enough that she's really this affected by it that she can sit and read that propaganda and say, "Oh my God, Gloria Steinem told me there's a rapist under every bed," you know. But it's so childish. It like when I used to really like get bothered when TFM would say, "Oh, women are basically children." But then like the more you kind of see stuff like this, it's like this is a very childish way to act. And
Yeah.
what do you do? Like, what do you? And it's I'd like to believe that kind of showing a mirror to it and saying, "Hey, man up, woman," that there's something there that might, lead to an improvement, to lead to a little bit more of a maturity. Maybe that's a little naive, but that's my white pill. That's my white pill gamut. Before we try anything too unsavory, before you resort to your worst option of just restoring the patriarchy, take women's rights away, all that stuff. Maybe women can man up if they're held to a standard.
I'm just gonna say that isn't remotely feasible anyway, because it would require a level of authoritarian control over women's behavior. I mean, TFM's proposed solution to this, a level of control over female behavior that apparently even the Saudis aren't able to muster at this point. So if they can't do it, we sure as fuck can't.
Yeah, well, yeah, that wouldn't work. It would reinforce every one of their beliefs, and they would come back stronger somehow. Because when women act hysterical, if there's even the slightest reason that people might actually sort of take them seriously, it will be effective, and they'll get whatever they want. What we have to do is shame them culturally a lot when they start acting like this, and not just say, "I don't care. I don't believe you. I don't care. You're hysterical, and you could, put on your big girl pants and act like an adult." And it does kind of work on an individual social level. It infuriates them if it's only one or two people doing that. But if, women are more, like biologically, there is more of a yearning for other people's approval in women than there is in men. Men don't really seek approval because they know that in order to get approval anyway, they have to actually accomplish things. And that's every man knows that. They learn that by the time they're very, very young. Like they learn that by the time they're about 5 or so.
I think, just to add to that, I think as an aside, it's worth saying, I'm not saying this is good or bad, by the way, this is just an observation. I think men like to feel that they've earned people's respect or that they've earned people's love, whereas women like to think that it's just there, that it's conditional.
Yeah, that they just deserve it because they are because they can come up with a claim that they somehow deserve it, or when they're little girls they cry and get whatever they want, and that works because people do have the gynocentric instinct, and they're terrified of having that ever taken away. So if we start you know, showing them that the reverse is true, that when they start acting hysterical and crying and everything, that makes us respect them less, then I do think it would have a profound influence on their actual behavior. But we do the reverse in general in society. So,
Yeah, I think I once said it was kind of a joke, but I joked at some point about using terms that are normally used for shaming men on women, like maybe we should start calling women pussies and betas and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of childish, but um,
I think
you
there's
know,
yeah, but that sometimes you got to speak that language if that's the level we're operating on.
yeah.
yeah, I like finding the things that they're going to feel most shamed by. Like I used the example on the stream with the MGTOW that we had, Mephistus, or God, I always can't remember how to say it.
Methodus.
Methodist. Um,
Methodus.
Methodus. Yeah, Methodist. I kept saying that too. Methodus. That
Methodist.
that there was this woman on a electronic music message board that I used to frequent back in the mid 2000s, and she was posting all the time about how the first thing I really remember her posting was, "Hey guys, so I just want to mention to everybody in Seattle, like how you always see me when I'm high. That's because I traveled to come to your party and I'm happy to be there. So I'm always going to be high." And then she's also talking about how it's good to bring her kids to raves because those are the only places, because she lived in Oakland. Those were the only places where kids where they met kids that were like each other, and because most of the kids in Oakland are all ghetto or whatever. And it's like, okay, so here's this mother talking about how she gets high all the time, also talking about how she brings her children to raves. You are a terrible mother. And I was the only person who just come right out and said it, and who was just like, no, no holding back. Like, you're awful. There's no excuse for that. And she got so mad. And then other people were like, oh, that's not, I don't know if you should, if you take it out on her, her child will suffer. And I'm like, okay, I don't think it can get any worse.
You, well, you
like,
say I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like that's her hostage. Then then you call it what it is. That's a hostage situation.
yeah,
Also, this calls for this meme. That's my secret. I'm always angry, but instead of angry, high. From Avengers. That's my secret. I'm always high.
yeah, but I like to think that like what I said maybe really had a difference on made a difference in her mind. Like I strongly believe that that shaming, that public shaming, is going to have a profound effect on her and going to make her reevaluate her parenting and stuff. So I don't regret it in the least. Like, it's certainly the reverse of what those people were saying was true. Like, people being like, "Oh, well, that's okay. I just hope you focus on your child and make sure that your child is all right," or whatever. And it's like, that is the exact wrong thing to do.
No, totally. And like I just it bothers me people are too polite to say that because like the children can't really say that they don't really have any power and like everybody will tell you like you need to intervene when people are abusing children, but then everyone's all about ending child abuse except for when it's time to start doing ending child abuse stuff.
Well, ravers live in an alternate reality where ravers are the best people that exist. And supposedly, according to most ravers, with like, this is a literal quote, and I don't think it came up at the same time, but it maybe did. Because I'd heard this numerous times. I had a big problem with children being brought to raves because in the late '90s they just weren't, and then all the ravers got pregnant somewhere along the way, and then by the mid to late 2000s they were bringing their kids all the time to like not necessarily raves so much as these like 2 or 3 day festivals that would be during the summer in Washington State, like maybe on a 3 day weekend, and there'd be little kids there. It got so bad that it would end up like Lord of the Flies with these kids. They'd be running around together, and oh my god, this is terrible. And so I started being like, look, this is really bad for kids. Like, people use so much drugs at these, and they're like, not everybody uses drugs at raves. No more so than if you go to rock shows. And it's like, okay, that's something that only a raver would say. Ravers are in 3 categories. Either they're currently using drugs, they used to use drugs, or they're going to start using drugs soon. That is all you're going to get because these are built around a drug culture. And then people would say things like, "Oh, well, I am positive that if a child has to grow up with a drug addicted or drug using parent in 20 years, it's not going to be the child that's still using drugs because they will have seen the effect it had on their parents." And it's like, that is the reverse of what is true. Anything that the parent does that is made into a normalized behavior in the child's mind is something that the child will pick up as an option. The children of drug addicts end up dramatically more likely to be drug addicts. That's just the dumbest thing that you could ever possibly say. And but ravers live in this alternate reality where their behavior is entirely okay. It's a really, really toxic culture.
Well, and I wonder, like, if this author here, if she had a daughter, right, who would, like, imagine this daughter witnesses this event of, her mother sitting there reading Ms. Magazine, getting herself all worked up into a hysteria, and then, begging, pleading her husband who just got home from work, why haven't you solved rape yet? Why haven't you done this yet? Blah blah blah. Right? And I wonder if maybe that's part of this problem is if it's children emulating this normalized behavior of just acting like a pussy ass beta, frankly.
Also, I wanted to I have a comment about the previous topic about the why ravers think that ravers are the best people. Well, because they go to raves while under the influence of ecstasy, and people they see under the influence of ecstasy will be remembered by them in more positive light than it would have happened if they were sober. Because, well, for obvious reasons. If you've ever tried ecstasy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, of course, people they see under the influence of MDMA are in their mind the best people there are in the universe. So that's kind of there. As for children picking up habits of their parents, well, sometimes, for example, my father was like a serious smoker, and I've never smoked tobacco. I've never smoked tobacco. Well, not like for sex tobacco. The first time I tried tobacco, it was when a friend of mine made a joint. Well, he always puts tobacco in his marijuana joints, and this is when I never always thought that smoking tobacco is the dumbest thing you could do. It's like it's nasty. There's just really hard on your lungs, and there's no pleasure in it. And yeah, it turned out pretty much as I expected. It's really why do people do this? At least if you're going to get addicted to a harmful substance, pick substance that actually gets you high. That's, by the way, great life advice from me. If you're going to get addicted, get addicted to something, the good stuff. But,
no, yeah, I think if they were to legalize marijuana, I'm pretty confident that tobacco would really go out of fashion very quickly.
I wouldn't say about tobacco. I know that it would probably affect alcohol sales more because, well...
oh, yeah, alcohol. So I think, honestly, tobacco and alcohol are kind of like shit-tier drugs. That the only reason people use them is because those are the only ones that are legal.
That, and also the fact that tobacco addiction is an interesting thing because tobacco influences, unlike most drugs that influence usually drugs influence serotonin or dopamine systems directly, but tobacco, first of all, its mechanism of action isn't well understood yet, but from what I've gathered from reading for some research, well, it influences acetylcholine systems, so it influences a lot of other subsystems indirectly, and that's why the effects. Well, tobacco has a psychoactive effect, but it's kind of very sneaky, so you don't notice how you get addicted. But trying to quit, well, a lot of my friends, were smokers or still are smokers, and a lot of them tried quitting, and it wasn't an easy thing. And if you compare it to quitting some other substances like amphetamine, the first 3 days are kind of shit, but then it's fine. But with tobacco, it's even the period you have to be clean until you start being normal is much longer.
Well,
And
also, if you buy a whole pack, you have 20 of them. So then, like, what happens is you just want one cigarette. So you buy a pack, and then you're like, well, I have this whole pack, so I might as well smoke all 20, right? And, like, you never really regret one individual cigarette, you know? So I think that's part of it, too. If you can buy them individually, then I think that's actually a little bit better. At least for kind of doing it in more moderation. Like he says, just take peyote. Yes. And like, man, I hate it when people are always like, oh, I didn't realize peyote is part of this culture and I should have been more respectful. It's like, oh, whatever. Nobody owns a drug. That's stupid.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Well, the problem with peyote is that it tastes nasty. Well, if you have a chemist friend, they'll ask them to synthesize pure mescaline.
Yeah,
It's
but
the
people tell me that like Kharkov and Baijiu and things like that taste nasty, and I think it's fine. And I just drink it out the bottle. So I'm not confident any drugs taste bad.
well, peyote is like you need to eat several. Those. Oh, go ahead.
I think you're just moving something.
Oh, okay. Well, the problem with peyote is that first of all, people, especially those who are first timers, when they try this cactus, they usually it ends up in them barfing. Not just because the mescaline itself is kind of can cause this, but mostly because the other stuff in this cactus. First of all, it tastes really really bad, and also there are other things. Look, even mescaline is there in the cactus mainly to deter animals from eating it, which is kind of ironic given that that's literally the only reason people eat it. But there's that. Also, other proteins there are kind of nasty and cause not dizziness. It'll cause you to barf.
I did mescaline one time accidentally. It was pretty brutal.
I've tried synthetic mescaline, and yeah, it gives you this nausea feeling, but then also you can't throw up. So it's really weird. You almost kind of get into this like zombie status. It's kind of neat. It's really good for watching movies because like it makes you not able to fall asleep, and it gives you like a really crazy like crisp clarity in vision, but also like some subtle hallucinations. Like things will kind of melt like around whatever you're focusing on. So it's very it's kind of interesting, but
I can say if your hallucinations are subtle, you didn't take enough of it.
no, yeah, well, it was a weird thing. It was like a weird thing that was like because it was synthetic, so it was like a special kind of it that had just come out or whatever. And I think they banned it like right away, but it was like legal for a really really short period.
I think it was probably wasn't mescaline. It was another similar substance. Those quote unquote research chemicals.
Yeah, exactly.
But it wasn't mescaline because mescaline is banned worldwide and has been for like decades.
Yeah, well, they called it synthetic mescaline.
Well, the way they call the things, synthetic only means that it wasn't extracted from a plant material, but was synthesized in the lab.
No, exactly, yeah.
The fact that it's probably one of those, either one of those substances discovered by Shulgin or some other similar things. No, Alexander Shulgin was a chemist, and when he was like 30-something years old, he tried, I think it was mescaline for the first time, and it was the moment he realized he found his life's calling, and then he proceeded to invent literally hundreds of drugs. Literally.
I think that's what they call designer drugs.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I wish they would just legalize all drugs so people can just have that be a thing, and then it's all above board, and everything's nice and safe and legal, and you can just let people explore that. Like, I feel like there's maybe a lot of knowledge to be gained from people doing the whole psychonaut thing. It's like nobody's forced to do it, but yeah, don't bring your kids to raves is the point. Are we ready to hear what she wants from men? This is the next paragraph here.
Before we continue, I just want to note that this time it wasn't me who brought up drugs. Like usually when I'm in a hangout, it always ends up just with discussion of drugs. But this time you
that time it was not. Yeah.
Instance.
All right. She says, "This is what I want from men, and this is exactly what men are beginning to do. I have had a hunch for several years that in the same way that women are awakened to our instinctual birthing and protective abilities in relation to children, that men must also have species instincts toward the protection of women and children as a group. Although some very progressive men's group have been speaking and acting against rape, most frequently they are gay men. For most men, the issue hasn't seemed related to them until now. Now they are responding instinctually, just as I had hoped, but it is coming about as a result of other men embarrassing them by including them in a philosophy they cannot support. They don't want to be associated with anti-feminism and a blatant denial of patriarchal reality. These men are, by their actions and their words, creating coalition with women, and with feminist women no less. In our time, with the constant barrage of pressure on men to keep playing they roles that have kept them... I think she means the... Sorry, with the constant barrage of pressure on men to keep playing the roles that have kept the culture going, this act of alliance takes courage. So I pretty much ignore the men's movement, focusing instead on the real work of creating a world that might be fit to live in. Women are working to stop the destruction of the planet, and we're committed for the long haul. I'm interested in brothers who are joined with us in this endeavor, which must necessarily include stopping the war on women and children. This time we're living through is critical. There is reason to hope we will not make ourselves extinct, but it will require that we join together as cells in the one body of our mother and fight for her survival. We can't do this when men are in denial about most women's terrifying reality, imprisoned in the cage of the patriarchal family, with rape and murder a constant threat, and no safe place to get away."
Oh, first of all, I forgot to mention this before when she was talking about how she annoyed her ex-husband. But this is how out of touch is she when she actually said that, well, while her husband was working his ass off to provide for the family, she was sitting at home reading bullshit feminist magazines, and then told him how hard it is for women. Like, she was sitting at home, probably not doing much. If she had time to read this Ms. magazine. So, how privileged do you have to be so blind to your own privilege?
Yeah, and that is the cage of the patriarchal family, right? She's sitting in that is a cage.
Well, I would put her in a cage in a fucking zoo. And don't feed the animals.
I thought the part earlier about instincts of men and women, she seems to be prescribing acting upon an interest in men to protect and provide for women. She's saying, oh, finally this has occurred because of progressive feminism. And it's like, no, bitch. That's always been the case. These men have always been protecting and providing for you, and you turn around and say, oh, I'm in a patriarchal cage. Like, the cage is her own mind. She's choosing this cage and creating it, and then she's just flipping everything 180 degrees afterwards. It's completely backwards. she can't
Also,
make any sense of why men don't want to be compared to or relate to rapists, and it's like, well, because men are the ones building these shelters that apparently they don't exist, right? They have nowhere to go, even though you mentioned these domestic violence shelters earlier in here, these rape crisis centers. You know, these cops and lawyers and courts, you know, these people who are her helping her deal with all these issues. You know, it's a lot of men doing this work, but oh no, why aren't men taking responsibility? And you know, the
Yeah,
entire time she hasn't at any point acknowledged any men's issues except to dismiss the idea that men who don't have fathers have anything to complain about.
I believe Karen Strawn said it very well. Feminism tells men to put women first in a world that already told them ladies first.
yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much. Also, I want to point out the kind of amusing thing that she says that she is going to ignore the men's movement in an article directly addressed to men's movement, which is self-awareness. What self-awareness?
yeah, and it's just and like I get that the mythopoetic movement it didn't necessarily tackle all men's issues the way that like the modern men's movement does, where you know there's a whole list of different topics and you can go into any of them in great depth. I think the mythopoetic movement had more of an overarching kind of ideology surrounding it, and and it was a little bit more traditionalist. So I think that even this mythopoetic movement doesn't highlight all of the men's issues, and is probably more in the you could almost call it masculinist, right? Where they're not necessarily depicting men as victims. They're actually kind of asking men to kind of reclaim some of these things. So to some degree, they're not completely wrong in some of the things they point out about the mythopoetic movement, but the way to properly criticize the mythopoetic movement would be to say like no, like here are some real men's issues, but what we have is like maybe two groups that aren't really willing to see men as like human beings, ends in themselves, who like shouldn't be beaten up or raped or murdered. Like that's apparently too much to ask of the feminists or the mythopoetics at times.
Also, I already mentioned it, but it's really if you have to read a magazine to know how oppressed you are, chances are you're not oppressed.
Yeah, right. And how common is that with these like white feminist women, right? Where it's like they go to college, they go to get their undergraduate degree, and that's where they learn, oh my god, like I can't believe how awful the world is. Like I was oppressed the whole time, I didn't even know it. Well, that's
It's
why they
funny
have
how
consciousness raising.
It's funny how when when it comes to men, men are radicalized by YouTubers who tell them how feed them quote unquote red pills to show how they are like white men are oppressed in the modern society and that's why they become alt right, evil Nazi terrorists something. But the same people ignore that universities and other quote unquote higher education institutions higher education because you need to be high to consider this education. Yeah, so they brainwash people into this stupid ideology, and this is not radicalizing. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course not. Well, it's not radicalizing when we do it. Just like
Yeah.
how it's not reactionary when we do it.
Yeah, it's not a cult when we do it.
So was she saying that basically rape is in men's nature, a part of men's nature? I mean, of course it is in a sense, but like, what's her take on that?
Well, it's hard to say. It seems like she's assuming that's the default, but then deeper down, there's an instinct to protect and provide for women, and that's what they're finally noticing.
Yeah, I don't think rape of women in your social in group could ever possibly have been the default, or ever have been a. There is a certain area of evolutionary psychology that looks for adaptive explanations of rape, um, as like a reproductive strategy, but it really only makes sense in wartime because the rape of women within your social in group, within the tribe or the clan, the nation, whatever, has always been more likely to just result in you being killed or imprisoned or whatever as opposed to leaving descendants. So the men who will do that are very much in the minority, the extreme minority. That is, men who will rape the in-group. And I think it's probably largely a byproduct of things that are being kept in the gene pool, or traits that are being kept in the gene pool because they're sometimes useful for other things, like psychopathy, for instance.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
that makes perfect
it's a
sense.
default in certain culturally enriched multicultural societies, like uh, when
Talking about the Rotherham incident, that's
and
that's an example of, well, it's not war obviously, but it has the uh, they're raping the out group because they're an out group. If you see what I'm saying, it's not because
yeah,
they're women. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's funny how the same people who are obsessed with rape are the ones who want these people to come in and culturally enrich society.
And maybe actually this point is something that we can flip, right? Where like we criticize this woman for being so childish, being so ridiculous and so childish. And then it's a point that some people have made where they say, well, maybe if women are allowed to be more childish, it makes them it makes them some good better at being caregivers in some way. I personally, I'm kind of not really buying into that. Like, but yeah, I wonder if there's kind of a way of saying, well, if you can look at like so-called toxic male behaviors and then say, well, what's maybe this evolutionary advantage to having this kind of like this potential for them to do these awful things. I wonder if you can kind of apply that to both genders and say, here's all like the most toxic and awful and horrible things that people can do. What's the potential like evolutionary advantage of this being in the toolkit?
Well, these people like AGWs, they try to discredit evolutionary psychology as pseudoscience because it is what's the spanner in the wheels of their ideology. Well, that's why I call them secular creationists, because they will deny science when it contradicts their dogmas, and they're just use the same fallacies, the same methods as creationists. So it would be so funny if it wasn't so sad.
Well, and I feel like people who do creationist apologetics are often a lot more like logical and intellectually honest than people who cling to these feminist narratives. Like feminism doesn't hold up under the most basic scrutiny. At least the creationist apologetic can they can make some constructions that kind of make sense, and a lot of them will admit like the limits in how they're approaching things. And Prince, I don't know if you're trying to talk right now because your thing highlighted, or he might be out. He might be out on like his patio, just like listening. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't like an audio issue. But if you are trying to,
If it shows activity but doesn't there's no audible sound, it's probably some very quiet ambient sounds from the room. So it's
yeah, I realized that. Also, Bloody Bush mentioned, LOL, what? Children are better at taking care of children. Yeah, I know. That's a good point. I'm trying to throw a bone. I'm trying to be very charitable. Okay, I'm trying to think positively. This is kind of I have to maybe ruminate on this idea a little bit more. All right, let's get into the next section here. She says, I remember reading about a survey asking men what they were most afraid of from women, and women what they were most afraid of from men, which revealed a shocking discrepancy between the sexes. Women responded that they feared being raped and murdered, and men responded that they feared being laughed at. How estranged are we from one another, I thought as I read this, as though the sexes lived in two totally different worlds. I wonder how it is that we are able to communicate at all. When men stand up for women against other men, more traditional and or oppressive than themselves, they risk censure and blackball from the old boys network. But through that action, they break down the barrier that has been erected between the sexes and make union happen. In union, there is always healing. So that's classic. That's an old feminist trope of women are afraid they'll be raped, men are afraid they'll be laughed at, and Actually, I had a lawyer friend who has since like blocked me on Facebook, and she was responding to the whole Kavanaugh situation, mentioning like women fear this and don't, and before anybody responds, this is not women overreacting, okay? And there's this whole tirade about it. So I responded on the thread by just posting some links of like, well, here's the data that shows men are more likely to have all of these things happen to them. You know, like you have gender parity in sexual violence, and then more so when you include all the things that aren't counted, which would be male genital mutilation, prison rape, and female perpetrators of sexual violence against men, which would be rape. It gets counted as sexual assault. You know, it's all old stuff. I felt like to me, it's like very old news, and she just like had no response to it. She's like, your facts are so different that we can't even have a discussion or whatever, right? But like the reason she framed her whole thing as like don't just say women are overreacting is because she knows that she knows the truth. And it's just shocking to me.
Yeah, well, the threat narrative lives strong.
There's so many lawyers on my Facebook thread, and they're all stupid.
Yeah,
like, as more time goes on, I'm like, lawyers are dumb. Honestly, I think the only good lawyer is Nick Rakita. He's the only lawyer I like. The rest of them are just fucking dumb.
Yeah, no, it's actually definitely a thing. In the state of California, only like 1/3 of people pass the bar exam every year, and the lawyers who do pass are just these completely dumb people, and I think it's because the laws are so incredibly counterintuitive and downright backwards in most situations that only dumb people can accept them as that these are the really the laws. And so, like you go through the bar exam and it's a very, very rigorous bar. It's a very, very hard test to pass. And then you can't actually always just remember everything. So you have to sort of like, okay, this is what I think it probably is and probably should be. And you're going to be wrong. But the dumb people can just, memorize crap and be like, oh, I know the truth because I was told that this was the truth, white people cannot experience racism. Obviously, somebody told me that. Like that type of thing. I don't think that's on the exam. And so they end up just being these like completely like wackadoodle idiots who think that they're smarter than everybody and think that they know everything. And it's absurd. It's very angry. But hey guys, I actually got to go. I will talk to you guys later.
Well, thanks for staying with us, and see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for dropping by.
Okay,
see
bye.
you.
See ya.
Oh, speaking of stupid lawyers, have you seen this really, really disgraceful video in defense of Captain Marvel made by Legal Eagle, or as I call him, Legal Smeagol?
Yeah, Teal Deer responded to it.
Oh, I think I did see that. Yeah.
This the stupidest thing ever. Like, yeah, he touched my map. That's why I stole his bicycle, his motorbike. I'm sure if this happened in real life, this would be the jury would be buy this narrative and consider her innocent. It was a reasonable self-defense. This is so stupid. Also, the TLD only mentioned one thing, but actually. There were more things wrong with his video. For example, the fact that he showed the scene from Terminator 2 that was supposed to be, this was a ripoff of, and in that scene he selectively edited it to make the two scenes more similar. For example, remember when Terminator went into this bar and when he demanded clothes and motorcycle, this biker, took a cigar and poked him in the chest with a cigar. Well, this segment somehow was omitted from the video, which in the if he included that, there would be actually a better case for self-defense, if you could call it that, by Terminator, because the biker committed physical assault by poking him with a lit cigar. And so yeah, I mean, it's not exactly. I wouldn't call it tampering with evidence, but it kind of shows how dishonest he is. Maybe that's why he's not actually, doing actually court cases, but instead making YouTube videos, because he's such a shitty lawyer that he thinks that touching someone's map makes it okay to beat him up and steal his stuff. Just a guess.
Yeah, it's the whole Star Wars thing. It's just it kind of had the Game of Thrones treatment where it's all the commentary surrounding it that's become more interesting than the actual thing.
She kind of forgot that they surrendered.
Also, speaking of the fact that he even compared this to the scene from Terminator 2, and this, as if it was somehow positive for her. Let's not forget that, first of all, Terminator in this movie wasn't like a hero, because the idea was that people were saying that Captain Marvel wasn't a hero because this is not a heroic behavior, which it isn't. It's actually at the most I can do is like call it anti-hero behavior. Like, you would expect this from a character like the Punisher, for example. Well, not the best comparison, but if the Punisher did something like that, it would be in character, and that's not a hero character. It's like a very classic case of anti-hero. But oh no, she's totally a hero because Terminator did the same thing. He wasn't a hero. It's like literally a machine. It's not even a human. And yeah, the funniest thing is that Terminator in Terminator 2 had more character development than Captain Marvel in Captain Marvel, which is ironic, given that, it wasn't a human, but at the end of the movie, it was a fully fledged character. But that's the funny thing, because if you watched the director's cut, you saw the scene where Sarah Connor had to extract a chip from his head and re-enable the self-learning mechanism, so he would actually, have a capacity to learn from experience, because it was disabled because people who sent him back didn't trust him enough. Anyway, so the thing is that in the beginning of the movie, Terminator is literally just a robot with no concept of morality. The fact that when John told him that killing people is wrong, it was a foreign concept to him. Like, ask why? Why cannot I kill people? Because you cannot say that someone is a hero if this someone literally is incapable of understanding the value of human life. And this is the thing that Captain Marvel doesn't have this excuse. Well, she, even though she had an amnesia, she still was human. So unless she was a sociopath, and having an accident and having your memory wiped doesn't make you a sociopath, at least not that I'm aware of. So yeah, it's I'm rambling, but you get the gist. What I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, as best I can. I don't think I haven't actually seen the Terminator movies. Like, I think I've seen them, maybe a couple of them when I was very, very young, but never as, like, an adult. And I'm kind of thinking, like, now that I've, like since becoming, like, an adult, I gained a little bit more of a like, an appreciation for sci-fi things, that I should probably revisit
you should watch totally.
I know, I should.
By the way, the funny thing, I recently rewatched Terminator 2, and you'll be surprised how well it aged, because usually movies, even the movies that had groundbreaking special effects at the time, often if you watch them now, they look just really, really dated. But Terminator 2, it aged surprisingly well. It's really, and effects are the only things that age. Story elements, those things are. If you look at even modern stories, you can trace back archetypes and literary devices and other parts of the narrative. You can trace them back sometimes even to antiquity. There's a lot of storytelling is very ancient art, and not much has changed. So, anyways, I'm really rambling. Sorry about that. Yeah, you should totally watch Terminator. The first two. The third one was let's not talk
Now
about
that
that
you're
one.
talking about special effects, now my mind moved over to Dark Crystal, but we shouldn't talk about Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal is like a 80s fantasy movie.
Yeah, with puppets. It has puppets. I'm excited for it. There's like a
Oh,
new thing coming to Netflix of it, so we'll see.
I
Cross my
haven't seen
fingers. We'll
it.
see what happens.
I haven't seen it. I kind of mix it up with Labyrinth, which is
I would,
also like an 80s.
I actually never saw Labyrinth. I gotta add that to my list. I gotta add that to my. That's like it's becoming a catchphrase now. But this comment like he has in the chat is interesting. I put it down to we're talking about women having neotenous sort of behavior. And he says I put it down to they act childish because men in general are very tolerant of kids. It's just manipulation on their part. And like what's interesting about that is I remember I was listening to a stream with TFM where Halsey was saying that men don't make good caregivers because if they see a kid like fall and hurt themselves, men have like a reaction of anger or something, and they don't have like a caring, empathetic urge. And like that really struck me as such a weird thing to say. I don't know if maybe because I'm a little bit atypical. Maybe I'm just like not typical, but I don't like to me like I find that completely unrelatable and 1,000% untrue. So it's funny because now I hear like he's kind of making like the opposite claim, which is what I would think is more true in general. Oh, would you think that's normal for like a father who sees a child like hurt to like have an angry reaction to that?
No.
Like toward the child specifically. Like I don't. Yeah, I thought that was a really messed up thing to say. Halsey's weird. He's very interesting, but I think he's weird. not that I'm one to talk, but okay. So she continues. I have a vision of us joining hands together and raising our voices in a great call for justice. I hear us drumming and singing, setting up a sacred rhythm that will heal us and our planet, raising our vibration and making possible a miracle or a healing. I know, right?
Fucking vibration.
Now we're in the witch part. As mostly white Westerners, members of the feminist movement and the men's movement have a responsibility to respond to the global situation in an effective way right now, without another wasted moment. I see that our ability to make authentic community together is the key to healing, and that the ego separations between women and men, not to mention gays and straights, Christians and pagans, and the other schisms between us, must be overcome and abandoned long enough for us to sound a new note, a new intention on the planet. So she low-key just revealed she's pagan, right? You wouldn't make Christians and pagans your dichotomy if you weren't a pagan. Like, literally only a pagan would say that.
Also, the funny thing is that when she calls for mostly white people to do something on a global scale, wasn't it done before? It was called colonialism, no?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, we're in peak white savior mode. Now we're gonna do colonialism non-colonially. Because this time, they're not conquering anything. We're just raising our hands and healing and setting a new rhythm, and that's how we're gonna. I'm just imagining this as just like an animation of just like all these just fat feminist women setting up like a prayer circle, doing like some spirit fingers around like a starving village in Africa, and like the Africans are just like. Do I eat this? Like, what?
Well, I mean, we can solve two problems: hunger and obesity with one cannibalistic move.
I mean, yeah,
Win-win.
and this comes back to this is why humans sometimes resort to cannibalism. I think, it's saved as an evolutionary advantage just for these kinds of situations. Is that a stretch?
You are what you eat, as they say.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Soylent Green made for people, by people, from people.
Oh no! What if the cannibals eat the feminists and then they become woke and then it's just like unstoppable?
Oh, yeah, that's a problem. It's actually more likely than some people might think. You know how prions can be transmitted via eating, so that's why if you are going to eat some wild animal, don't eat the brain. And the prions, the problem with prions is that cooking usually doesn't do anything to them. You know about prions and the mad cow disease.
Yeah, I've eaten pig brain. It was really good.
Well, if it's certified quality meat from a farm, then yeah. The problem is that prions, it's not actually a disease. Like, it's not a pathogenic life form. It's not a virus. It's not a bacteria. It's a malformed protein. The problem is that it's malformed in a way that when it comes into contact with a normal protein, it makes that protein malformed, and then it can quote unquote infect other proteins of the same kind. And the problem is that cooking usually doesn't destroy it, and so far there's no way to treat it. So once you get one of those in your system, you're fucked. It's like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think it doesn't onset right away. So maybe I will slowly develop like mad cow disease as I make my YouTube
If
channel.
you, unless you ate it like a month ago or so, you already would have
Yeah,
some.
it's been a couple of years, but yeah, I had it was pig brain. It was really good. It was kind of like chili. It was really spicy with lots of big chunks of fat in it. So that was obviously the brain part, and it was really tasty. It was like street food too. It's like
Oh.
it was delicious. It was so good. Highly recommended.
Well, about street food, well, you know, I mean, for me to give other people advice on how to be healthy and how to be safe, it's kind of it's kind of hypocritical given.
I might be the
Um,
one person then that you're able to give advice to.
well, in any case, I mean, it's not very likely to get this, prion disease transmitted by prions. But the problem, by the way, the if you eat primate brains, it's more likely because of the similarities. So if don't eat monkey brains and don't eat human brains. That's
Yeah, there we
also
go. I
in
think
some,
didn't Reza Aslan eat human brain like on film?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was great for memes because this photo where he was chewing at something, he had this crazy Mass Effect Andromeda look on his face. So it was just perfect for a meme. Like just like brains, kind of look like a
Yeah, that
zombie.
was human brain too. That was like ugh. And you know he
Brain.
wanted to, you know what I mean? Like you make up an excuse to not eat human brain. You're like, oh, I didn't want to offend someone's culture. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. Just looking for an
Well, if,
excuse to eat it and to display it because he's a Satanist.
the funny thing is that if Reza Aslan is a Muslim, right? What if
Same thing. I mean,
what if
just
it was
splitting
like
hairs.
something made from pork, like a culture that eats exclusively pork meat and nothing else? Would he also, given that according to his own religion, this would prevent him from being in heaven after he dies?
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'd have an excuse if he wants an excuse. Is the point?
Yeah,
So
it's
who
funny
knows?
how eating pork is worse somehow than eating literal human brains. And given that these people are they're cannibals, but they are not murderers, so it was a brain of someone who already died from whatever, who knows what. So it's not just a cannibal, but also like a carrion eater, because well, that's that's what it is. Like it's just it's very appropriate for someone who works at CNN to be like a cannibalistic carrion eater.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. it's just it's like Pete Buttigieg jokes. It's just so on the nose that you feel like it's just out of like a really bad work of fiction.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fact,
so
sometimes
let's see how her joining of hands and having a drum circle is gonna solve the world's problems. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready for some healing?
Yeah.
I have long maintained that men and patriarchy aren't the same thing, and that real masculinity is an unexplored phenomenon whose time has yet to come. I encourage men to step out from their blanket identification with patriarchy and stand up for what they believe and know themselves to be. When men disassociate themselves from patriarchal roles and expectations and can begin to relate to women authentically, they will have natural impulses to stop the constant rape and murder that our culture simply takes for granted. The constant rape and murder, just the rapescape that is reality. I love how too her conception of real masculinity involves like basically being defined by its treatment of women. But I don't think she has any awareness that that's what she's packaged in here.
Well, I mean, it's just a fucking tarot card reading, which do you expect her to be intelligent?
Yeah. When men stand up to other men and say, no more rape, then the consensus reality in society can change.
Oh,
can you imagine a world where men are opposed to rape? Oh, can we just imagine?
Yeah, I'll send you a picture via Discord. You should show it because it's topical and it's hilarious. One moment.
Yeah.
It's from my collection of. I get what they try to say, but this is so has such an intentional hilarity. Just.
Oh, I think I've seen this one. This one's good. Okay,
this is why punctuation is very important.
Punctuation is very important. Okay, I'm just gonna add a window capture, and then I add a thing, and I click that, and it is. I should have kept it up and then just hit it instead of throwing it away. Okay, so there we go.
Well,
I just have the whole screen. No, more rape.
Oh, it. Oh, yeah. Now it shows. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, there's
just a little bit of a delay. There it is. No, more rape in this one too.
In the midnight hour, she cried more.
Do you really have 260 notifications on Discord? Wow.
A lot of them are, yeah, well, I'm a part of a lot of servers now, but also, like, Honey Badger Radio gives me a lot of notifications. And they have a very active Discord community. It's very hard to keep up with. I try what I can, and they're fun people, but it's hard to keep up sometimes. Welcome to Tisdale. I can't read from my little screen.
Welcome to Tisdale, land of rape and honey.
They mean rapeseed. They mean rapeseed.
Oh, rapeseed also sounds really...
Oh, I remember the grapefruit one. That is not a G. That is 0%. Is this a G? Like,
yeah, that's the style.
The worst G ever.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't do. Oh, by the way, kind of unrelated, but there's a picture that shows the difference between feminism and men's movement, like in one picture.
Oh, I'll put this back.
It should show up.
Let's share childcare, men's liberation. Men are more than success objects. And then, housewives are unpaid slaves. Oppress women. Don't cook dinner. Starve a rat today. End human sacrifice. Don't get married. Oh, and then really small she has washing diapers is not fulfilling. Okay.
First of all, even back then there were disposable diapers. Also washing machines are not exactly. You don't nowadays. Who the fuck washes manually? Just put it in the washing machine, press a button. Also, nobody's forcing them to have children. It's given that there are a lot of contraceptive methods. Having children is a choice. If unless people are so stupid that they don't even bother or don't know that they can control it. And if they don't, these are actually the people who shouldn't procreate to begin with. But, hello, idiocracy.
These people definitely shouldn't have children.
No, yeah, and it's also just an extension of this stupid argument of unpaid labor. And it's like, you don't have to earn money to, like, keep your bills paid and have your shelter and everything. Like that's a form of payment.
Emotional.
They want to be paid for
emotional
caring
labor,
for their
yeah.
own children, which is like, how sociopathic is it? Like they don't want to take care of their own children unless they're getting paid.
Yeah,
Those people
it's
shouldn't
very
do this.
anti-human and very like bizarre to me that yeah, they don't see like being a mother as its own reward. And it's very sad. It's very very sad. Okay, so then she continues. After no more rape, then the consensus reality in society can change. We can begin to say collectively that we do not condone violence against women, and that murder and rape are not okay with us as a culture and as a species. This is the awakening of sanity and the necessary unification that precedes transformation. It may be naive, but I can imagine a mass awakening of our consciousness that would make pornography obsolete. Sorry, the tea bags in my tea moved and it startled me.
Why are they so like? This is one of the things that what feminists and treadcocks have in common. They are against pornography.
Yeah, so we're in a little bit of sex negative territory, I guess.
Depends on the feminist, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, you have your sex positive and your sex negative, right? That's why you got the swerfs. You got the turfs and swerfs.
Yeah. But by the way, speaking of, I think that feminists oppose pornography because it actually lessens the power women have over men. Because
Oh, yeah.
it's now the outlet of you know.
Yeah. Porn stars are just scabs. Same thing with prostitution. Prostitutes are just scabs. They're union busters. They're ball busting union busters. Every single one of them. Now that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Are you ready to imagine a world where people are opposed to rape? Are you guys ready? Do we? We're gonna have to get real creative here.
Well, she said something before about imagining a world with no rape, and it sounded as though the implication was that until there's absolutely zero instances of this thing happening, then we can't legitimately say that our society is opposed to it. Seems like an arbitrarily and ridiculously high standard. I mean, nobody says that murder is condoned in our society, even though it happens. So
yeah, and it's much more common than rape, and like even she would concede that point. But I don't know if she would dare say that murder, huh?
Oh, sorry. What's more common than what?
Oh, I was thinking. Now that I think about it, no, maybe rape is more common than murder.
Right.
Well,
yeah, I guess I didn't think of that.
How culturally enriched your country is.
Yeah.
Well, also it depends on what rape is. Like, if you exclude all the sexual assault and make it only rape, it has to be rape. Sorry that's a form of rape now. We got more kinds of rape than there are Pokemon. Rape is one of them.
Also, check out Discord. I sent some stuff from my collection.
But yeah,
Okay,
ethnic enrichment is definitely part of it. It's like oh, sorry, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Something about cultural enrichment?
Yeah.
And rape and murder. Yeah, I'll pull up the images really quick. So, I'm not sure how to make the window only like partial and to zoom in on things. I know that I can just make it bigger.
Well, right click on it and select filters, and then you can add the crop filter.
under filters.
Yeah, I think.
And then
it's more intuitive and expert. Well, I think maybe in even in OBS you can like hold Alt or Shift or something to drag instead of resizing it with the crop. Or was it in XSplit? I don't remember actually. Even though I've been using OBS for several months already.
This is a little confusing. It doesn't let
me
just
click on the picture. It will enlarge it. Or you could capture the different like browser window, and when you click a picture, it enlarges it, and click Open Original under it, and it would open it in the browser.
I can also just pull this thing, just make it like big this way. Just a little ridiculous. So this little cartoon is I have a boner. I'm a feminist.
Just click on the picture; it will enlarge it.
Oh, like that.
Well, I can see it with a delay, so no, it's yeah.
That's a.
And no, now I see it.
Basically, well, I mean, that is a thing, right? Is withholding affection is considered abuse.
It's surely not considered rape, though. Although that actually would be hilariously funny if that were the case.
It's no contact rape. It's non-rape rape. Well, I mean, shit, we have consent rape. There was that article, I was raped with my consent. That's my favorite form of rape, consent rape.
Yeah, I've seen people on Twitter saying that even there are certain instances in which a woman, says yes, and, maybe the man genuinely just believes that she's interested, but no, we have to have special caution about this. That is, we have to have caution about women who verbally consented, or at least expressed verbal consent to a sexual act. We have to be careful about uniformly not declaring that to be rape, or uniformly declaring it not rape, because that would alienate some portion of victims who habitually say that they want to do something when they actually don't.
Yeah,
of course,
ridiculous standard.
We can't place any responsibility on them to communicate their intentions clearly, because that would just be far, far too much.
But of course, men will have to be very, very clear about establishing consent and making sure that everything is fine and constantly checking in and making sure everything is okay. And of course, he can't misrepresent anything, right? If he makes himself appear to be more wealthy, right, then he really is. If he puts on any sort of a, so if he fronts in any sort of a way that may be considered dishonest, such that if she knew the truth, right, or if maybe there's anything about him that's bad that he doesn't reveal, and that it turns out the woman, having known that, decides I would never have consented otherwise.
Oh, and by the way,
he'll have to have perfect clarity in respect to all those things.
If just going on a bit of a tangent, but I just think it's funny. If they do have consensual sex and he fails to quote unquote give her an orgasm, do you know what the solution to that problem is? You would think it would be communicating with each other, as in as a couple. But do you know what the real solution to that is? Is to bitch about it on Twitter.
Well, that's the real orgasm.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. That's the real one.
Well,
I like this rape robot. This rape bot.
If one man doesn't satisfy her, then gangbang might be the solution, but...
Lol.
Or, sometimes women, they finish themselves if they need to.
By the way, show the next picture I sent via Discord.
There's things people negotiate, And the next one. Oh. Let's see. Self-doubt. Oh, yeah, the telepathic rape victim. That's right. And fart
If this
rape.
doesn't show that we live in a rape culture, nothing will. Checkmate misogynist.
Yeah, it's true. There's more kinds of rape than Pokemon. We should catalog them all. Many feminists argue that quantitative or positivist research methods that try to be scientific are research as rape. They argue this because researchers use the people they research for their own interest and then cast them aside once the research is over. Often no attempt is made to help them change their minds in any way. Many feminists wish for a feminist-only form of research and knowledge that seeks to help those in studies in an intimate way. Such research methodologies needs...
This is why we ought to just own it when they say things like science is based on masculine values, it's like, yes, and evidently it's the reason our civilization hasn't completely fucking collapsed.
Yeah, no, that's...
By the way, show the next one. It shows how those robust feminist methodology.
Oh yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this. Yeah. Its method should encompass intuition, emotional engagement, and other cognitive styles associated with a feminine sensibility. This view has had perhaps its greatest impact in feminist works attacking quantitative methods in the social sciences.
Just so manifestly a bad idea, because people can just feel anything, and then you have to respond to their feelings, and then you're basically just a slave
See,
to their
but
feelings.
yeah, but the way this is written, I could totally see how someone, if they're not really paying attention, they would just gloss over and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that sounds really reasonable," and like that's kind of just the state of humanity right now. Is like not enough people will like read this and be like, "Wait a minute, like that's ridiculous." All right, speaking of ridiculous things, let's we're almost in the end zone of this one here, and then we can have tarot readings. So there's 3 pages, but one of them is just her list of like notes. So there's only like one full page left.
All right.
She's gonna mention the Grateful Dead here. Oh, Terrence has a comment with the word rape in it that I have to click show on because this is probably our rapiest stream now. This is I deserve a medal from YouTube, rapiest stream. There should be YouTube awards for just like bullshit like that.
Gentle, silent rape.
Yes, gentle, silent rape.
There's I said another one Discord. Well, since we said that the rapiest stream.
We'll save that for the end. Okay, let's see. So she mentions it may be naive to imagine a mass awakening of our consciousness that would make pornography obsolete because the assumptions behind it no longer exist, having evaporated in the clear light of seeing the other. I can imagine forgiveness happening on a mass level, opening our hearts and cleansing each of us of the hatred and resentment we feel toward the opposite sex. I can imagine that mass drumming and singing songs of the soul might open our poor mechanized bodies to instinctual, free movement, and our straitjacketed minds to expanded states of awareness that can begin to comprehend the mystery. That's mystery with a capital N, M, by the way. I can truly imagine us letting go of the judgments and grievances we have held in relation to one another, and to the belief systems and blind allegiances that have imprisoned us in limited Western cultural ideologies. Mickey Hart, drummer for the Grateful Dead and author of 2 new books on world drumming phenomena, in his cross-cultural research into drumming around the world, came across the idea that humans have used rhythm in a sacred way for as long as we have existed. But, in fact, it may be rhythm itself that differentiated us as humans, way back at the break between the ape ancestor and who we have become. What a concept. As a healer myself, using drumming and chanting to support hands-on healing in a group context with cancer patients, I know the power of the drumming-induced rhythm that puts us into trance, an altered state of consciousness, and transports us as a group, as one organism, to a state of ecstasy that heals and transforms on a physical level. So there we go. Drum circles cure cancer. We have that. Maybe this is Joe Biden's trump card. He's going to unleash a great drum circle rally. Even cancer, in the process of rapidly taking over the body and killing all the normal cells by its abnormal growth, can suddenly and simply go away. This is called spontaneous remission, and is not understood by doctors or science. But I've seen it happen as a direct response to a group session of drumming, chanting, and raising heat through hands-on healing. It doesn't always happen, and I don't know how to force it to happen. But the fact that it sometimes happens is enough for me to continue to do the work. And I see that the drumming and healing don't do anything to kill the cancer cells, but simply awaken and activate the healthy cells in the body, which then begin to vibrate at a higher frequency and do what they had forgotten how to do. We white Western men and women are like potentially healthy cells who have forgotten how to vibrate. Unlike tribal people all over the world, we don't drum, we don't dance, and we don't touch each other in healing ways regularly as a community.
Because we don't need to do those things. It's just a waste of time.
Yeah, that's
like
ridiculous.
remission happens because, well, bodies produce, bodies have immune system which, even though cancer cells, that's the problem. Cancer cells are just malformed cells of the body, so that's why immune system has a problem dealing with them. But it can deal with them in some ways. So yeah, that's why remissions happen, and it has nothing to do with drum circles and other magical bullshit. Also, how many times it happened, and that's why in science, people try to be really, really thorough, and there are double-blind studies, because that's the problem. If you are already convinced that your magical vibration bullshit does good things, you will remember every time there's a good result after your session, and ignore. Like, it's like chronic gamblers. They remember how many times they won and how much money they won, but their memory of how many times they lost and how much money they lost are very hazy. Memories are selective this way. So
yeah, it's that, it's placebo, it's confirmation bias. It's just a lot of pretty trivial crap, I think, but...
And also, the funny thing is that placebo works if people actually believe that this drum circle stuff actually does things. Well, it actually influences how you feel, and mood, and determination, other stuff that happens in your head. It affects body in very concrete and provable ways, because let's not forget that there's no hard separation between mind and body. Mind is the process, one of the processes that happens in the body. So, and there's, for example, if you're constantly stressed, your what's the name of this hormone that is associated with stress?
Cortisol?
One of those steroids. It's
Are you sure it's
because
not
of
cortisol?
the
Yeah,
hormone.
not serotonin.
No, it's stress. This hormone. It's one of steroids. It's a steroid. So when
Does
the
it begin?
level of,
Does it begin with a C?
I think it is. One moment. Let me.
Cortisol, is it?
Cortisol sounds right.
One moment. Let me find the name. Cortisol. Yeah, cortisol. So if cortisol is levels of cortisol are higher than normal for a prolonged period of time, it actually can affect your organism in very, very negative ways. It can literally cause brain damage, because people who have elevated cortisol levels, they have problems with remembering things, and also it can cause other hormone levels to fluctuate, and that affects how organs work. So yeah, your mood and your the things that happen in your head have a direct effect on your body. So yeah, it could be that people who actually really, really believe that magical drum circle bullshit will help them will get their hopes up. They'll get in better mood, and it can actually really make them feel better, and even maybe can help their bodies more effectively deal with whatever condition they have. So in a way, it may work, but very indirectly. So I'm not saying that all of those things, yeah, those are pretty real, but it's the same as placebo. Placebo works not because of anything in that pill, but because you believe it works.
Yeah, and the thing is if you can kind of measure it and repeat it and reproduce it, then that just becomes part of science and medicine, which is fine, But she's obviously trying to make it this big transcendental thing, and it's kind of, and it's dangerous to suggest that someone does it as an alternative to traditional treatment. I feel like if you want to add that to your treatment, you do you, you got cancer, you do what you have to do, that's fine. But she's clearly overselling it because this bitch wants to charge money for tarot readings through the internet. That's,
yeah.
I mean that's her future, right? This was before then, but of course now that's what she's selling, now that the internet's a thing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that a lot of those healers, some of them are actually con artists, but most of them actually believe that they are doing the right thing, and it might be actually related to things that they see people's condition improve because of that, and they don't realize that it's just placebo doing its thing, and they think that they actually got it figured out. So they are well intentioned. I'm not going to blame them for wanting to help people, but if they convince people that this is all they need, and they do it instead of actual medication, because cancer, people say, oh well, when will cure cancer? Well, cancer is not some one disease. It's like very it's a broad term that describes a lot of similar but different conditions, and some of them are treated if properly treated, and treatment starts early. There are a lot of cancer patients who survived and are fine now, even though, because science has gone pretty far, and of course it would be great if there was like a universal pill that will cure cancer and any type of cancer at any stage. But well, cancer is not, if you get cancer, doesn't mean that you're doomed to die of it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's that.
Well, now we're gonna get into the part where she talks about bleeding.
Oh. Is it like
Western
free
women.
bleeding?
I know we're not necessarily free bleeding, but I guess we'll see how free. She did talk about free movement earlier.
Mhm.
Western women hide our monthly bleeding and have epidemic PMS. Wait, she said epidemic PMS?
What the fuck is epidemic? Wait. It's not an epidemic. It's not something It's not a
What?
disease that you can be infected. It's part of normal, female, physiology.
IQ confirmed for 90.
Oh my god. Western women hide our monthly bleeding and have epidemic PMS. And Western men go to war or to the office to mechanically prove their potency. Our whole society is sleeping, as if hypnotized by the boring, repetitious litanies of patriarchal culture. The
What
feminist
the
movement
fuck?
has awakened some women to what is natural and should be granted freely. And through our association with the goddess, an ancient, pervasive image of female sacredness, we have begun to imagine ourselves powerfully enough to risk changing. The men's movement is almost certainly an effort by men to awaken in the same way and toward the same end. I'm glad white men are going to the woods to drum and dance and cry, but I hate it that they blame women for their dilemma, and I wish they would stop making trite analyses that come from their feeling that feminism is going to rob them of their illegitimate power and privilege. So this is funny. She says it's so wrong to say that feminism is going to rob them of their power and privilege, but she stops to note that it's illegitimate power and privilege. So Vicky, what are you saying? What are you trying to say? Oh, surely if this is illegitimate power and privilege in your view, that means you're taking it away, right? I think she just admitted to it. She just admitted like, oh yeah, their concerns are valid. Like right? Either oh that's nonsense. Feminists aren't trying to do it. We're not anti-male. We're just pro-women. We're not taking anything away from men. Oh, but also male power and privilege is illegitimate, right? Which one is it? Are they trying to take away and dismantle illegitimate power and privilege, or are they saying, "Oh no, 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 like we're not doing any of this"? Like
Well, I mean, do you expect them to actually be consistent? The worst thing is that she probably doesn't even realize. Well, it's with
yeah, I don't
always
think
with
so. I think
cultists.
shit.
They
Yeah, it's
don't realize
all
how retarded they sound.
it's the intuition based sort of research.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Just throwing,
projection. They're calling it a trite analysis. Like, hi, Vicky, we're 8 pages into this, and
just throwing this out there. It's apparently a fact that approximately 1 in 7 U.S. adults cannot perform mental operations more complex or even as complex as finding the expiry date on a driving license. And I just get the feeling increasingly that she's one of those people.
Wait, what is hard about finding expiry date on a driver's license? If you don't know where it is, you just methodically scan it with your eyes, left to right, top to bottom, both sides, and you'll find it.
I think
Well,
the font's a
apparently,
different color
apparently,
too on most of them.
yeah. Well, apparently 1 in 7 Americans don't have the wherewithal to do that. So, and in Britain, here's a better one actually. Approximately 20% of British people believe that it takes a month for the Earth to orbit the sun. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, no, takes a
That's,
little longer.
Just giving you, because I think a lot of people don't really have a frame of reference for what this is like because they don't know anybody in real life that's like this, just because of assortative socialization for intelligence. But yeah, this is what the left tail looks like of the
You know
bell curve.
what it reminded me of? There was a again, usually when someone does this surveys are really not representative because unless you correct for example, if you don't make sure that your sample is representative, you will have a sampling bias. So if you, for example, ask people on the streets of a city, your survey will only reflect at best it will reflect what people in the city think. So what countrywide, for example, in a big
Well,
city,
if
people.
anything, in big cities, you would expect there to be a bias towards in favor of the cognitively elite people. You would assume because cities attract those kinds of people.
Yeah, but just because they have elitist tendencies doesn't mean that they actually are mental elites. No, actually, yeah, you see, I'm very rambly today, but what I'm trying to say is that there was this kind of joke survey, and it was reported by like both right wing and left wing outlets, and they selectively reported on this. So people in the U.S. were asked about. What their political views are and what should they do about Agrabah, the fictional country from Aladdin. And those left-wing outlets ran with these headlines. Some 20 or something percent of I don't remember how many of Republicans think that U.S. should send troops to Agrabah, and then conservative outlets read with headlines like 30 something percent of Democrats want U.S. to accept refugees from Agrabah. Both of those are true, but just the fact that they chose selectively, I think it's kind of hilarious.
That is pretty funny, but
Then again, geography is not something that most people are very fluent about, especially since countries change names all the time after a regime change. So
yeah,
sometimes it's
there
hard
could
to
be a
keep
real
track.
Agrabah. Where did they get the fake name if it wasn't real ever? Like they just made it up.
Yeah, what kind of bullshit is this?
What kind of bullshit? Wakanda forever. There is cancer in this body, and it's raging right now, threatening to annihilate all life on this planet through its blind and very rapid growth. We, all of us, are cells in the larger body of our planet, our Mother Earth. Some are cancer cells, some are healthy cells. It is important to take a stand. Now is the moment of life and death. The perfect opportunity to throw off the cancer by aligning with the rhythm of the drumbeat, the heartbeat, the planetary immune system. It's time to make coalition when a body can respond to a survival thrust from within it. The immune system wakes up and throws off the invading illness or virus, and the organism returns to health. I believe there is a strong survival thrust happening in the body of this planet at this time, and that as cells in the larger body, we can respond. One of the worst obstacles of our unification has been the war of the sexes that is at the core of patriarchal culture. The men's movement that interests me is the one that's moving in response to life, knowing that life gestates in and through the mother, whose very being is organized around sustaining and protecting future generations. I have faith that the growth of the men's movement, because it is generating an instinctual response from healthy cells, will help to turn the tide in this collective fight for time. The destruction of life on the planet has reached the point of no return, like sand running out of the hourglass. Let's leave no one out of our transformation, trusting that anybody can snap at any moment, becoming part of the solution instead of the problem. There is a rhythm, like the beat of a drum, I can hear it, and it makes me want to move with you, with her, to ecstasy and remembering and renewal.
You
And
know,
that is the end.
the part where she talked about how there's a cancer and it needs to be dealt with while talking about planetary scale, it kind of sounds like what she's proposing is genocide, because humans are like cells in the body in our society, and some are
Yeah!
really bad cells and need to be taken care of. And you know how cancer is usually treated with chemicals. So yeah, there was a certain regime in 20th century that tried to get rid of societal cancer using chemotherapy. You know how that ended.
Well, and that's not even a stretch. She did say, we're all cells in the body. Some of us are cancer, some of us are healthy. Pick a side. This is a
Yeah,
war. This is
either
battle of the
with us or you're my
sexes.
enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all in this whole like, oh no, I'm not waging war. I'm not genocidal. I'm curing cancer and uniting us with the Mother Earth. Like, no, bitch, you're crazy. You're crazy. Ugh, my goodness. Well, that's Vicki Noble. We have. Oh my gosh, there's a bonus page. There's a description of her. Vicki Noble is a feminist shaman healer, co-creator of the Mother Peace Tarot, and author of Mother Peace: A Way to the Goddess. She published 2 issues of a periodical Shake Power. Snake Power. A journal of contemporary female shamanism, now becoming an annual book to be published by Harper San Francisco, and most recently authored Shakti Woman, Feeling Our Fire, Healing Our World, the New Female Shamanism. She teaches and travels internationally, working with women, healing, and empowerment.
At least there are cool shamans who make hallucinogenic concoctions using ancient recipes. Like ayahuasca. It's fun because it's interesting how shamans came up with this recipe, because for basic ayahuasca requires 2 components to work. One is the source of DMT, but the problem with DMT is that when taken orally, it doesn't do anything, because the digestive system destroys it before it can actually reach your brain. And so for it to be active orally, you have to also take monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and that's the second component. And you have to give them props for finding those 2 plants that have to be cooked together in a brew, so to make them into this very interesting concoction. Also, those plants, the monoamine oxidase inhibitor, like usually it's those harmala bark alkaloids. Usually it's like harmine, harmaline, and others, and they are psychedelic in their own way, in their own right. So the effects of ayahuasca are more. Well, they are different than DMT taken with like pharmaceutical grade monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So also, shamans, they wanted to make their concoction more spicy, so they added other stuff. That's why Aztecs were the craziest of the bunch, because usually ayahuasca is considered to be one of the more brain melting psychedelics, but Aztecs thought it wasn't strong enough, so they added hallucinogenic mushrooms and datura there, just because why not? Oh, by the way, this apparently I have no idea. It's like, apparently it looks like something you would see on a bus stop. I have no idea where it came from, but it's
Oh, that's got to be photoshopped, right?
apparently not. I need to actually look it up and find where it originates from, because and I know that some women have weird fantasies, but
Oh, sure, but they don't usually publicly
yeah,
advertise them like this.
Well, someone's got to speak truth to power. Someone's got to put it out there. What's this one? For those who aren't quite familiar with the discourse of this movement, patriarchy is a social system which places the dominant power in the hands of males. It can be subtle or extremely obvious, and most times both males and females are unaware of certain manifestations of patriarchy. For example, most soft drink bottles are shaped like a woman's body. The next time you purchase a bottle of Fanta, look carefully at the curvation shape of the bottle you hold. It's like a subtle reminder of our purpose in this society. We're meant to look good, be sweet, get used up, and when we're no longer needed or necessary, we're discarded. I've heard that before. Although it's funny because if you look at like the Pepsi bottle, it's like, are those the like is that just like a big muffin top and like
I thought that the Pepsi and cola bottles, they were shaped like this to make them easier to hold, so it doesn't slip out of your hand. Even if it's, for example, if you take it out of the freezer, well, it will have condensation real fast, so it becomes slippery. But when it has like this quote unquote waist, if you hold it, it gets wider on the top, so it won't slip from your grasp.
that's just an
So
excuse. Condescension is part of the patriarchy. Condensation is just another form of mansplaining because it's condescension. I don't know. Sorry, that was twisted.
well, I mean,
It's a
everything.
conspiracy. Is the
But
point?
this shows how really they will see patriarchy everywhere. If you are conditioned to see it everywhere, you will see it everywhere. It's kind of like those crazy people who believe that they are gang stalked and gang harassed by I don't know, Illuminati or something. They will see signs of it. It's or remember in the 80s there were all those crazy preachers who were listening to rock music backwards to find satanic messages because they probably didn't have anything better to do.
Yeah, it's crazy how well the satanic panic is like a very teachable moment for so many things happening now. It seems like nobody really learned the lesson. Wait, that was what you mentioned, right? You mentioned that, right? Satanic panic. People were,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's like satanic panic isn't anything special. There were so many things before it that were. It's like moral panics aren't anything new. So it was just the most well known example, but it's
I'm not sure how to
mixed
take
messages.
this. Yes means fuck me. No means rape me.
Well, I'm getting mixed messages. Well, families don't think through their slogans. Sometimes if you think about what they're trying to say, it's not exactly what they mean to convey. Also, it's fun about Fanta. Funny how the author didn't even mention that Fanta was invented in Nazi Germany. Moo. Which is actually true.
Ooh.
It's actually an interesting story because, well, if you want to hear, it's interesting because, well, before World War II, there were Coca-Cola factories in Germany, but the problem is that those factories were just bottling plants. They got the concentrate from main plant in the US, and they just diluted it with water, carbonated it, and put it into bottles. And when war broke out, obviously there were no more shipments from the US. So the director of the factory had two options: either close down the factory and fire everyone who works there, or come up with something. So he decided to come up with something to produce from local ingredients, and he tasked his employee to think of something, and he and told him to use his imagination. And imagination in German is fantasy. I'm mispronouncing, but yeah. So and in this part of Germany, it was kind of famous for producing cider, and it's like alcoholic drink from apples. And well, this guy found a way to make a soft drink from leftovers from those apple leftovers from producing cider. And since he was told to use his fantasy, well, he called it Fanta. And well, that's how they saved the factory from going bankrupt. And after the war is over, well, this guy actually could claim that, since I saved this factory, we're just independent company now. Fuck off, Coca-Cola. But he decided to instead submit to the authority of Coca-Cola as it used to be. Well, that's a quick and dirty story of how Fanta was invented and why it was invented, and
I
I
just
thought
like
it was interesting.
I just like the Fantanas. That song is so catchy. Fanta, Fanta. I'm so sad those commercials are gone. Anyway, this is the Motherpiece Tarot website. So we can see this is the official website.
What the
They have
hell?
glyphs everywhere. There's Karen Vogel, which I'm not sure if she was. I'm not sure if she has an essay in this one. I don't think she does. And here's our friend Vicki Noble. Looking very feminist. She's a radical feminist healer. Ooh, she has something kind of new.
Well, first
Four
of all,
mothers of the
I just
women's
opened the
spirituality
website.
movement and elders and visionaries 2015.
I just opened the website, and it like takes half of the screen width. Like,
Yeah, I don't know why.
when
We've
was
just
it
this
made?
big abyss
Why?
here. Maybe this is a meditation area. Okay, there's a
Mhm.
meditation area here. This is where the business is, and this is our meditation zone. Okay.
This website is so early 2000s. Oh,
Origins of the
by the way,
Motherpiece Tarot. These
for
little
those who are watching
glyphics
us, you can check it
everywhere.
out, motherpiece.com, and see how badly
Yeah.
the site has aged.
Motherpiece.com. And this
And
is
it's
semi recently updated too, because they have stuff about 2015 at the latest. When did they last update it? Well, the copyright is expired apparently. 2001 to
apparently in
2006.
2006 it was updated.
Ooh,
So
let's look
at
at
least if they bother
her
to update
resources.
the footer.
We have
I mean, I
Artemis
know that there's
Archery.
a
What is
saying. If it,
that? What is Artemis Archery? Traditional
I know there's
archery
a saying.
lessons
If
in
it
our archery
ain't broke,
ring.
don't fix it. But
This is
this
feminist empowered archery. This is golden. This is amazing.
wait, it's a different website, right?
Yeah, this is a link they have. This is in their resources link.
Well, it's funny because this website actually looks more recent, and
This looks pretty modern. I
let
want
me.
feminist archery lessons. I want to be Artemis. I
This
want to be
website.
Artemis. I can shoot something and eat its brains. Summer day
Well,
camp. Yes, let's have summer
it's
day camp.
it's funny how
I've
this website looks better, but it's really kind of boring looking. It's not terrible looking, but it's nothing to write home about.
I
It's
think
like
this is
really.
just like a summer camp with a little bit of woo.
Uh, well, at least I mean it's a fun hobby, and also,
That
well,
seems
target.
expensive for a day. $335 for a day seems
Yeah,
a
it's a
little
bit expensive.
pricey.
Well, depends on what they do there, because
I suppose they're doing archery, but like that's kind of archery is pretty like once you buy the bows and the arrows, like you just reuse them. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine
yeah,
there's a whole lot of upkeep to make that a super expensive thing.
well, since obviously if the bows are used for archery training, they will wear out quicker than they were if they were used by a single person. But still, I mean, it's
Yeah, that's true.
also
Maybe it's not too bad.
looking at the pictures, I see they are using wooden arrows, so they are less expensive than carbon fiber ones. And I don't know.
I've got to go to bed. See you guys later.
All
Well,
right,
thanks
thanks
for
for
playing with
dropping
us
by.
during this.
Have a
Bye.
good one.
Well, I don't know much about archery, so I won't
Let's
comment
do
about that.
the
But I know that this website it looks really bland and corporate. So it's not bad, but it's kind of it could have spiced it up, because you could archery is not as boring as the website makes it look. That's what I'm trying to say. But
All right, let's do this tarot card reading, okay? So anybody
the
in the
enemy.
chat, you can play along. You can help us choose which cards. So first we choose 6 cards. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So there's 22 cards here. So let's throw out some numbers. Let's throw out some numbers, chat. 1 through 22.
7.
All right, well, number 7. Let's take that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take number 7. I'm gonna take number 4. And I'll take this one also. Come on, chat. You're so talkative usually. Bush Dimension, I'm waiting on you. You have to choose one of these cards at least. And Terrence, if you're still there.
Bloody Blue
D20.
Dimension says D20.
So I have to find a D20 and roll a D20 to figure out which one it is?
Well, there are online. Let me find
Roll a
online.
D20
Online
simulator.
D20.
I'm gonna actually do it. I'm gonna actually find a modern dice roller and...
Oh, good. I found already.
Where's my
one.
D20? Where's my D20? Oh, it's a D12. Okay.
Check out
Roll!
Discord.
I got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need 2 more.
Oh, Bloody Bush Dimension says I'm rolling it.
Wait, but did you roll it and also get a 5? That's what I got.
That's very serendipitous. So
That's
yeah.
crazy. Did you roll a 5 on your phone? I rolled a 5. Look, I rolled a 5 up here. See? That's crazy.
Well, how many cards are there like in the deck? 24?
Apparently 22. Or there's only 22 that I can choose from. I'm not sure how many are in like a proper tarot deck.
You can find a random number generator where you can set the limits. So it would because D20 only can select from 1 to 20, but there are 22 cards.
Right. So that means we should pick 21. And then we get one more card. I'm just going to go ahead and roll my D20 here one more time.
Here's like random.org/integers. It can select random integers with selected boundaries.
This one says 19. So we're going to go with 19. This was 21, 20, 19. All right, there we go.
So here's a link in the Discord.
Hey, we got a hot naked chick for the first one. We're on a roll. And let's see. Should we go with the
Okay, so it's
classic look?
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to go with the classic look. Although I think these mythic ones look kind of nice. Let's go with these ones. So, card 1 tells us how you feel about yourself. The Star. You feel there is hope. Wait, can we read all of it? Okay, yeah. You feel there is hope. Or if you don't, have faith. A tranquil period is imminent. If you have been ill, suffered bereavement or disappointment in love, take heart. Good fortune is on its way. New horizons are indicated, and you will feel a new zest for life. This is your wish card. If considering a new love affair, new job or career, or travel, then go for it. You may also receive a gift or gifts. Alright, well, that's very... It seems like they're always good. What you want most right now? The world! This could be like a meme. You're most likely looking for a successful conclusion after all your hard work, and the arrival of the world in your reading here suggests that's either happening now or just around the corner. This is a time for completion and satisfaction. The final chapter is here and now. You've done your best and won through. Wow, how positive. How positive stuff. Okay, now your fears, the Chariot. The word failure isn't in your vocabulary. You are worried things are more of a struggle than you expected, with more delays and frustrations. Things aren't going according to plan at all. Just chill out, calm that mind of yours, and you'll find the strength to battle on until you succeed. This is a period of movement and change, and conflicts ending in victory. Card number 4. What is going for you? The Fool. This is an exciting time with lots of potential for fun and wonderful experiences. Your confidence should be high. It's a great time for new possibilities. If you are considering leaving your job, home, or relationship, at some point you will. An unexpected desire will be fulfilled, even before you express it. Card 5. What is going against you? The Hanged Man. You are allowing yourself to be victimized and emotionally blackmailed by others, or you're playing the martyr or victim to try to manipulate others. Don't be too materialistic or try and hang on to something or something for all the wrong reasons. Someone or something has to go. You must find the ability to let go and give this up. Don't worry, it will turn out for the better for you.
Wait. I have a question. Why the hanged man is hanged by the foot? It's like they're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's a little strange, but he is always upside down. Like if we look at this version, he's hanged like this way. But on like this newer one, he's just like leaning against a rock, so it looks kind of
So it's
silly.
not even hanged. And
Oh, I wonder,
given that
is
there
it
was a
supposed to be like
bird,
I think it's what, like, not Sisyphus, but
um,
the guy who has his bladder eaten
yeah.
out all the time. I
Oh
think that's
fuck,
what it's
what's
supposed
his
to be
name?
alluding to.
I forgot the name, but yeah, this guy who was yeah Greek, chained to a rock, and every night an eagle came to eat his liver.
These ones are so stupid. These hero ones, I hate them. These like Lotus
Mm.
Turret ones are really weird looking because they're all like. I thought this one has like a doggo here.
It kind of looks like one of those children's book character or something. Those
Yeah.
photorealistic ones, they kind of like they're photorealistic, but not quite. It's like really tripping me
They
out.
have like a weird kind of hodgepodgey, like mixed media sort of a thing.
Yeah, like a photo collage, and it's really kind of it
Yeah,
hits
like
right in the
this
middle of the uncanny
particular.
valley for
Yeah,
me.
this is very offish, just in general. Wheel
Yeah,
of
it's like I see
Fortune.
it. They're like using parts of photographs and parts are drawn, so it's
This
really
one I
really,
kind
really
of like. I like this one. Let's see what the.
the fortune.
Yeah, because the
Yeah,
the original
Mystic
is kind
ones
of
is
strange.
expect life to change. Well, duh.
This one just derp. We'll go
Mm,
with the mythic
yeah,
one
it's kind of
here.
like children's drawings.
Expect life to change, and quickly. Fate, destiny, or synchronicity, call it what you like. Positive change and good fortune is evident here. If you have important choices to make, trust your intuition. Do you feel that events seem to be evolving without much input from you? If so, trust it and go with the flow. Wow, so we have very good very good rating here. This is definitely a 100% star.
Yeah, so
Thank you, Safina.
yeah. Well, it's kind of what you expect. It's kind of very similar to astrology and other things. Like
It's very,
very
very
platitude.
vague. Yeah, you read into whatever you want to read. Also, they're kind of redundant too. I feel like, but maybe that's part of the power of it. Maybe it must be true because they're all the same. All right. Well, we've gone on. We made 3 hours out of 10 pages, which is usually what happens for this stream here. So what
Well,
I have left of the book, there's 7 left, and about 7 weeks until ICMI 2019. So that's perfect. But most of these ones are actually a lot shorter. Like the next one is only like 5 pages, and most of them are like maybe like 4 to 5 pages. So they're a lot shorter. So I might put a couple of them together just to make sure I'm not like down to reading the last one like in my hotel room at ICMI. But I could. Anyway, the next one's called The Men's Movement of Choice. So Ms. Kathleen Carlin is going to tell us what she thinks the men's movement ought to look like in order to save everything. And then after that, we have Father Hunger, Why Soup Kitchen Fathers Are Not Good Enough. And I remember this one being particularly weird, this Miriam Meadsian one.
first of all, how is it related to the men's movement?
Well, at some point they're just going to take some jabs at Robert Bly, and then they're going to go and just pontificate on whatever they think is necessary to save the world, I guess. Although,
Yeah, but
this one coming up by Margaret Randall called And So She Walked Over and Kissed Him. That one is actually directly responding to Robert Bly and has multiple citations from his book, Iron John. So, you know, I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. Any last thoughts?
well, feminism is a hell of a drug.
Hell of a drug. That's yeah. Can't argue with that. All right, it's nice to see everybody in the chat here, and I'm glad you all stuck it out for your fortune. Now you know you have very positive things to look forward to. The tarot cards say dump your girlfriend and get a new one and start a new job because everything's just gonna work out. You earned it. All right, bye everybody.